Hi, I'm Shane. I'm with the Hood County Substance Abuse Council, and today I have Kate with me, and she's going to share her story. And we don't really have a time frame on this, so we're just going to see how it goes. Let Kate share her story, and then I'm sure I'll ask some questions as well. All right. Well,
Okay.
Kate, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And I'm excited to hear about your story, and I'm not going to lead it out with anything. Just let you kind of start out and share how you want to share, and then I'll maybe ask questions as they come along. So,
All right, sounds good. So, I guess always start at the beginning of your stories. I come from, obviously I grew up in Toller. I graduated in 2016 from Toller High School, but my story actually begins a little bit earlier than that. I was fairly quiet in junior high and didn't, really be into that scene or anything like that. But whenever I got probably into my freshman year, I got a little bit of a wild streak in my hair and decided that I wanted to go, hang out with kids that were not my age and to start doing things. As soon as I started working when I was 16, it got a little bit worse. But when I was 15, I first started to smoke weed and I started to drink at parties. And, I guess for a 15-year-old, that is almost normalized at that age. Now, in this day and age, it kind of is. But I never really pictured it going any further than that. I used to, hear, it wasn't really in this area, but I used to hear about people that would get into like serious drugs. And I was like, oh, that'll never be me, because that's what nobody ever thinks.
sure.
But it very much can turn into that. I come from a really supportive, loving family. I don't have any serious trauma from them that I deal with as far as like my reasoning for turning the way that I did. So it truly doesn't have to be anything from your background story. It can really be decisions that you make. So whenever I was 15, I started to smoke and I started to drink, and then I started to dabble with cocaine at parties. That was every once in a while. I was still kind of scared of it because I didn't really know. But as I turned in, so 15 was when I really started using, marijuana, drinking, and a little bit of cocaine pretty regularly. Then I got into being 16 and 17. I graduated when I was 17, so this was like my junior and senior year. I really, really kind of like got the ball rolling. I started to go to raves almost every weekend with a group of friends. We would go
So
to
we don't have those
Dallas.
in Toller, do we? I'm curious. Or where
They
where were they at? Not physically, but
they are
Fort
in
Worth or where?
they are in Toller as
Oh,
well.
okay.
Yeah, they were
See,
my
us
friends.
us older people need to understand a little bit, honestly,
Right,
about what's. I think a lot of us are honestly naive about,
right,
not
right. It's
intentionally,
very
but we don't. Obviously, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but probably at 17, 16, 17, I'm guessing you're not telling your parents, "Hey, I'm going to a rave,"
absolutely not.
right? So,
Absolutely not.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Location services were turned off and we were hanging out, in Pecan Plantation as far as everyone else is concerned.
okay, sure,
But we were
yeah,
definitely going to Dallas and staying out, and coming back at 7 o'clock in the morning
sure, wow,
driving. Yeah.
okay,
Um, but they were my friends in Toller. I had friends from Granbury. And then that led me into like their friends from Fort Worth that were, in their 20s, and that's where we
sure.
would get everything from. But I started going to raves. I started experimenting with Molly.
So you were talking about going to raves and all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
if I could just ask real quick,
Ask me.
because I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you obviously had a source of drugs or whatever.
Right.
Did you have to pay for those? Did they give it to you free? I mean, how does that work
So I wish
in
I
your
could say that
case?
it was free, but we know we absolutely had to pay.
Okay,
Yeah, we definitely paid for them. They came from Fort Worth. They came from Dallas as far as like the Molly and the ecstasy and everything like that went. But if I was getting anything like cocaine or marijuana, that was in Toller. It was in Granbury. It was even in Stephenville where we would go and get cocaine a lot of the times.
so if you don't mind, since we're talking about that, then I'm gonna let you continue to talk
Mm-hmm.
about your story. How did you come up with the money to be able to do that? And
I worked. I started working at Babes when I was 16,
okay,
and I somehow managed. to keep up with that. And amongst
Right.
all of this, I considered myself, just a normal functioning teenager that liked to party.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and I guess it was like that for a while, but then it took a really big change when I got out of high school. But anyways, so we started doing all that, and then just partying, drinking, doing the most all the time. And then my senior year, I think it was October of my senior year, we started senior year, and I've already alienated everyone that from my school that was like my good friends, my friends that I'd had for a long time, and I just hung out with, the people that I thought were just like me and that I wanted to be around.
Alienated them in what way? Just did it change you? You mean
It changed me. I
you?
wasn't somebody that the right type of people would want to be around.
Okay.
And looking back, that's understandable. I was not very nice. I was, grouchy because I was either, out the night before or I was ready to go out the next night.
Tired or ready for more drugs or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. But I was October of my senior year, and the drug dog paid a visit to the Toller High School, like they always do.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, I'm always late to school, or I was always late to school. They gave me a heads up on the way because I was late, and they said the drug dog's here, and I'm like, psh, whatever, like I'll just throw
Yeah.
my stuff out.
Right.
And I thought that I did. Everything that I remembered was in my car.
Wow. Yeah.
So I go to school and I park my car. I know it probably smells like marijuana, but they can't charge you on a smell. And I
Right.
couldn't get
Sure.
that out on the way to
Yeah.
school. So obviously I knew they would hit on my car, and they're like, they put on the intercom, Kate Gilbreth, come to the office. And I'm like, okay. So I go down there, and the officer's in there, and he asked for my keys because they said the dog had hit on my car. I was like, whatever, I had a really bad attitude then. And I, just kind of threw my keys on the counter, and I was like, I'll be in, whatever class when you're done with my keys.
Yeah.
And so I went back to class, and then they called me back out again, and I thought I was going to get my keys. It would be fine. And they told me to go into, it was our counselor's office, and they told me to sit down.
Right.
And I was like, okay, they're just going to give me like a talking to. It'll be fine. Like they just know it smells like pot. And the officer, I can't remember his name, but I really would like to, talk to him one day and let him see the other side of
Sure. Yeah.
it. But he comes in that office, and I was, I was playing dumb is what I was doing. And
Right.
he pulls out a baggie of cocaine. And I was 17 years old, and he was like, do you want to explain to me what this is? And I was like, it's not mine.
Right.
It's not mine, but it was in my car.
Right.
It's like, well, it was under your driver's seat, wedged in between the back floor mat and the wall. I was like, yeah, I didn't know that was in there. Obviously, I would have gotten it out because I pulled over and got everything out.
Right.
And so I just, started crying and trying to play the victim, dumb. I'm dumb college girl, or not college girl, high school girl. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I guess apparently in some way it worked. Being manipulative goes along with addiction, saying whatever you have to say.
Sure. I'm sure you get kind of good at it, honestly. Yeah.
And so I said what I had to say, that I was sorry and that it really wasn't mine, and that I've been hanging out with the wrong crowd and all of those things. And so they made a deal with the high school right then and there, Principal Morgan and my counselor, Miss Foster, the school counselor, that they were going to suspend me and kick me out of Toller High School. And let me do an off-campus suspension with Miss Rickabaugh, who was my teacher.
Yeah.
And just do that as opposed to charging me with a controlled substance at 17 years old.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Sure.
Looking back at it now, but even then I was mad.
Right.
I was mad. I was like, this is stupid, you know. Like, why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything.
Right.
And I was in that high school, and I had stuff in my purse all the time, and just looking back, it was so selfish, like doing all of these things and literally having it in the school, and like going into the bathroom like in between classes and making sure I was awake for algebra. Like, it's a hard topic to talk about, but it's real. Like,
Sure.
it was there.
Yeah.
A lot of people knew and didn't, I wouldn't let them tell me anything.
Sure.
And so they gave up.
Obviously no names, but were you the only one, or were there other kids, in your same shoes, basically?
There was a lot in every grade.
Yeah.
Every grade.
So, I'm going to interrupt briefly because I think it's common thought that,
Right.
and not only in Toller, but a common thought that there's not quote unquote a drug problem, or that it's only marijuana and drinking, right? So maybe you can
I
briefly
wish.
share your
Um,
opinion, not even opinion, but your experience on that, because I think not only the younger people, but us
mhm.
parents and older people need to, I think, come to terms with the fact that I don't believe that either. I think we do have a problem, but coming from you, it might,
Right.
mean more.
So it starts out that way. I mean, I've rarely met any individual who has just gone straight to the top like I did and ended up, doing the things that I did, which we'll get into.
Yeah,
But it starts out as marijuana and it starts off as alcohol. It always does. If you're normal in a sense, you party in high school. I mean, you drink, you do your thing or don't. And then you kind of grow up and go on with your life and don't take it any further. But like, what if your kid does? I mean, it does it.
yeah,
There's very much a problem, and It's not just not going to be in Toller because we don't want it to. We can't ignore it. It was there. I was there. I brought a lot of it into Toller, and I carry a lot of that guilt. But at the same time, I mean, it's going to be there, and knowing the signs is going to be the only way that you know how to make a proactive change with it.
sure.
So,
Just curious. I mean, was it the kind of thing where maybe marijuana drinking during the week, and then I guess the crazier stuff, if you want to say that, during the weekend? I mean, or were you consuming you know, I guess
the
the
harder
coke and the
stuff,
other
yeah.
things during the week as well?
Um, I was I would smoke every day. I would smoke marijuana every single day, in between classes. We would go out to the parking lot. I'm sure they've gotten stricter on that now, but like during break and stuff, like 10-minute break, we could go out to our cars
Right.
and it wasn't a big deal because this was, back in 2013,
Sure.
2014, 2015. And it really wasn't progressing. Like I remember a time whenever there really wasn't a super big drug problem because we were so small. I
Right.
graduated with 50 people and
Sure.
now it's Toller so much bigger, I
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
but
of course, you probably know now, and maybe not as much now because it's become such a big topic. But
hmm
now with probably since you've kind of come through, with vaping, you can put the dabs in the vapes and
hmm
get 70+% THC in it, and a lot of that's
yeah,
really hard to detect. So I don't
it
know if
is.
vapes were a big deal when you were coming
They
through, but I
they
know it's
were.
really is now.
We one of I'm not gonna, obviously name names, but one of my friends actually got caught with a vape THC oil pen in
Hmm.
Toller High School. They are a thing. They're very hard to detect. The way he got caught is basically because he was acting,
Yeah.
acting like
Abnormal. Yeah. Or
abnormal, and
yeah.
they were like,
You're
hello.
right.
But they're very hard to detect. It's very hard to know. I mean, to you just have to know the signs. That's the
Sure.
biggest thing.
Well, I think you hit on a good point. I think for one, if you're not looking, if you're not looking for it, in other words, as a an adult, looking over
Right.
your students, and if you, to your point, don't know the signs and things,
Mhm.
you're not going to see it, because I think I could be wrong, but I think it's human nature to want to believe that that kind of thing's not going on because we don't want it to.
Yeah,
But
but
we need to fight that urge, if you will, because the reality is, to your point, it is happening, and
yeah.
we'll get to it. I want to hear your story, but I'm also,
Mhm.
when you can get to it, I'd like to find out or hear from you what you think people can do, to help,
Right.
because obviously, um, in the midst of what you were going through, probably the last thing you wanted, I'm guessing, was for your parents or others to intervene. You probably
Yep.
thought that you were enjoying what you were doing. Of course, on
Yes.
the other end of it, it's a different story,
Yeah,
obviously.
for sure.
But go ahead and continue to
Okay.
share.
So after, the cops got involved my senior year, I got kicked out of school and I actually finished my classes online doing Odyssey Wear down at the old elementary school, the old second and third grade buildings. I
Mm-hmm.
just went in by myself every day. Miss Rickabaugh was always sitting there waiting with me.
Right.
I was always late, and she would always be at the door. And I would try and bring her like pig in a blankets or something from the donut shop and be like,
Sure.
I'm sorry. But like she really made a very big impact.
Right. That's great.
And she'd be like, I'm not stupid. I know.
Right.
Like, you don't have to fool with me.
Right.
But so I did my classes online through OdysseyWare. I think I finished in November. It's really hard to remember, but November or December. And so I was done with, you know, high school.
Right.
And so I chilled and did whatever all the way from January until May.
Right.
And was done with class. And then I remember Principal Morgan reaching out to me saying, all right, if you want to come get fitted for your cap and gowns, you can come up to the school. You're allowed on the premises from this time to this time.
Right.
So I went up there and I walk in the high school library and everyone's like looking at me like, where have you been? And I'm like,
Yeah.
we were doing our practice, like the, you know, the walkthrough for graduation.
Right.
And everybody was just like, you still go to school here? And I'm like,
Mm.
I sure kind of.
Yeah.
But I got fitted for that. And I just remember feeling so awkward going in there. And, you know, everybody tried to like be nice or whatever, but they all knew. I mean,
Sure.
Kate's doing what she's not supposed to be doing. And I still continued to do it. Even the day of my graduation, I showed up a little bit late and had to go run in line outside, you know,
Right.
as they were fixing to walk in. But I graduated, and then the night of my graduation, everybody went to graduation parties and, you know, tried to do like the right type of partying, like with their family and their friends. And
Mhm.
me and all my friends from a couple of them from Toller, but mainly from Granbury, that were graduating a couple days later, all got in the car and loaded up and went to a club in Dallas
Yeah.
the night of my graduation.
Wow.
Yeah. And so did a bunch of crazy stuff that night. And then that summer, I was supposed to go to Blinn College in College Station. I'd signed up. I even, on top of my graduation cap, had the BC for Blinn College,
Right.
you know, blue and white decorated on the top. And I just remember my mom trying to do everything that she could. She knew, but she didn't know how bad it was, you know.
Right.
And at this point, I'd only been doing, you know, the cocaine, the ecstasy, the Molly, and stuff like
Right.
that. And so we started having the conversation about, okay, do you want to go down there and look at these places, like these apartments and stuff? Like, I will help you. We'll get you in somewhere, and then we'll get you started with college.
Right.
And then I'm trying to keep this like somewhat vague and not
I
name
understand.
names.
Yeah. Sure.
I met a group of people that were from the Granbury area pretty early on into, it was probably like June after I'd graduated, June or
Right.
July, that started doing this new drug. And everybody in Granbury knows about them because of a couple of years ago, but they were called CAPS.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started partying with them, you know, we were just doing the drinking, the smoking, you know, all of that
Sure.
stuff. Xanax bars and all those things. But they told me that it was powdered lean, which is non-existent. That's not a thing.
Okay.
Codeine is lean, and, you know, like the
Oh,
cough syrup
right.
and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I didn't know any better. You know, I wasn't super educated on anything prescription-wise. And
Right.
so they said,
So in other words, it was supposedly some kind of oxy-related thing.
yeah, it was supposed to be some sort of downer, like chill you out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I was, you know, I'd always really been into uppers like cocaine and Molly and
Mhm.
ecstasy, and I like to party and stuff like
Sure.
that. So it wasn't really my thing,
Right.
but I tried it, and it actually, later on finding out, turned out to be synthetic fentanyl.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good. And so I just remember, like, it's this crazy like point in my life where I remember going from just like doing it to party and like doing it to hang out, and then like June, July, August, and then like in August I was supposed to start going down to College Station and figuring out like the apartments and stuff. And so for those 3 months I didn't go home. I stayed at my friend's house. I stayed with him, and like we basically just hunkered down in there. We were selling weed. We were selling the caps. We were, you know, just doing whatever by any means necessary. I was
Are the
working.
caps? I'm just curious because I've not heard of that, and I'm trying to know as much as I can. But I
Right.
mean, is that still a thing as far as you know? And what do you think brought it on? I mean, was it just a cheaper way to give people a certain feel? In other words,
Right.
I don't have a good sense of why these new drugs. Well, one thing I know is there seems to be a constant attempt to try to keep things "quote unquote" legal. You know, in a sense where you can
Yeah.
make something new. But
That's what it was. I think they identified it as 470, 700 powder or something like that. And at the time, it wasn't illegal.
Right.
They were getting it shipped in. But as far as I know, and y'all will understand later on in the story why I switched to what I did, they just went away at some point. It was a
Okay.
dealer bringing it in off the black market, capping it up and selling it.
Sure.
And I got addicted to that specific type of opiate.
So it
that
was a
downer.
certain kind of concoction, if you will, that maybe a select group of people were making. So I guess maybe they
Right.
got, you
It's
know,
compared to
maybe
an
they got
elephant
put in jail or
tranquilizer.
something, and then nobody was making it anymore.
Yeah,
But anyway,
and so they got put in jail, and it kind of just went whoop one
yeah,
day. I mean, I remember they used to be $5 a piece, and then it went to 7. Sometimes you can get them for 6, and at the end, they were selling them for $20 a piece.
wow,
And I was doing 10 or 15 of them a day.
wow,
I started out not even being able to handle half of one little one without
mm-hmm.
like throwing up and getting
Yeah.
sick and like passing out. You build your tolerance super quick with opiates, any type of downer like that. But
I mean, were you mixing it when maybe you'll get to it, but were you
Mhm.
mixing some kind of a, oxy variant and benzos as well or something like that at some point?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I was doing
because I know that's the really
benzos.
dangerous.
That's the
I mean,
dangerous
not that
stuff.
it's all not dangerous, but
Right.
I heard a really interesting statistic actually this week that
Overdoses.
80% of overdoses that lead to death, 80% of them is a mix of something.
Yeah.
It's not just a single substance.
Yeah.
20% is still too many, and so
Right.
that's 20% that's the one thing. But I know a lot of it's a mixture of alcohol and all these other things. So
Yeah, so anything like to do with Xanax and opiates, benzos and opiates, oxys and stuff like that, it's a deadly combination, and I was very much doing both.
Yeah.
All the
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
But
did you know that it was that you were playing with fire, if you will, in a
I
sense?
didn't
Okay.
I didn't think twice about it, but that was just me
Of
being
course, no one's
naive.
going to tell you, right? Amongst the people that are doing it, if they even knew.
Yeah,
Because,
and none of us, I don't blame it on any specific person because we were all new to it.
yeah,
You know, a certain person brought it in, but we thought it was just like another party thing. And
Sure.
like we could go without it if we wanted to. So I just remember a weekend where we did it steady. Like we got a big amount of it and we're just doing it steady throughout the day, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I had to work on Monday. I was waitressing. And I tried to go to work without it. That was my first time to ever experience withdrawal.
Wow.
And I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just remember like thinking like, oh, I feel sick. I have to go home. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I caught the flu or something. And then I get home or over to where I was staying.
Right.
And there was some caps there. And I did a line of it and I felt so much better. And I was like, oh, this is not okay. Because
So
like,
this is
you
a
get that-
powder that you're sniffing?
Mhm.
Okay.
It was a powder that I was sniffing for a
Okay.
while. And so kept on going with that. And then so I caught a charge. I got pulled over. Okay, so I didn't go to college. I basically was like, I'm going to take a year off. Like, I don't want to go.
Right.
You know, I'm in a relationship. I don't want to leave, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And so I was just stuck in this stagnant water of what I thought was making me happy, which was drugs and, you know, toxicity. And so I stayed, bouncing to my mom's house, like dealing with her turning my phone off, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Working basically to support my habit and to get gas and, you know, maybe a Sonic burrito every now
Sure.
and then.
So you're still living around here somewhere at that point?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so, forgive me, the story gets a little bit fuzzy
No, that's
whenever
fine.
I first think back about it.
Sure.
But I know that I caught, which is like a big thing to not remember the exact date, but I got pulled over at some point, either when I was 18 still. And I got pulled over and I had some of those caps on me.
Mm.
And an officer asked to search my car because I was swerving. I was going everywhere and I had
Sure.
two other people in the car with me and we were going to pick someone up.
Right.
And they found them. And they were like, you want to tell me what this is? And like, you know, the police department already had an idea of like what these were because a couple of people have been caught with them.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost 2 really good friends to them.
Right.
And we'll get into that too.
Wow.
But they knew what they were. And even they said it by name too. And I thought that was just a thing that we called them. And I was like,
Right.
oh, this is like kind of a big deal. And
Sure.
so 18, I caught my first, I didn't think that, I always thought it would never be me. You would never catch me. I'm a good girl. Like, look at me. I go to
Sure.
Toller. Like, you're not going to
Right.
arrest me. I got out of it once in Toller. Why would you arrest me?
Right.
And they sure did. They arrested me, and I got charged with a controlled substance under a gram. They couldn't identify what it was yet, though. They identified it as a controlled substance. I
Right.
think on Mobile Patrol it said it was methamphetamines, which was not correct.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what it was. So I go in and I call my mom, and of course she gets me out. You know, she was in Vegas actually, but she got me out. And so I get out and I go back to doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm awaiting trial at this point, right? So in Hood County, when you're awaiting trial, you have to take bond UAs when you're out on bond. Urinary analysis, every first and third Monday of the month to make sure that you are still here, that you are paying, your bond, and that you are staying sober and doing good until your court date.
Right.
It's not a thing that everywhere does, but Hood County does it, which is good, which was for me was bad at the time.
Yeah, because you weren't doing it, right?
I was not. But the thing about those caps, the synthetic fentanyl, they do not show up on drug tests.
Okay.
They don't. The stuff that I switched to later on did, but they do not show up on drug tests. It doesn't show up as an opiate.
Right.
It doesn't show up as anything. It shows up, it's under the radar because it's not actually any.
It's not something they're testing for.
It's not something they're testing for yet.
Right.
Just like how they had to come out with like K2 tests and stuff because it's not a normal thing.
It's just like CBD and marijuana. I mean,
exactly.
There's not really a CBD test,
there's
quote unquote,
not.
that
you
they
can
use.
Look at the metabolites, but I mean, it's by the time you do that, you're spending hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
But so I got charged with that, and I got out, and I was, basically going in on the first and third Monday, and I just stopped smoking. I stopped, doing cocaine because I figured out, like, that was my necessity. I was addicted to those, and I was like, well, if I can't do anything else, at least I can do, like, what I'm addicted to.
Yeah.
So I switched to, like, I stopped smoking, I stopped doing everything, and I was just doing those steady every single day, and I built up a tolerance really, really quick. And so I had to deal with that. I failed one bond UA, and automatically in Hood County, when you fail a bond UA, you get arrested, and you go in, and all that basically happens is they double your bond, and it's a money system.
Sure.
But they double your bond, and then you can get back out again and go back to taking bond UAs. It's kind of a messed up system, but you know, whatever. If you're gonna mess up, you're gonna pay the price, literally.
Sure. Yeah.
So I messed up. I failed for cocaine, which I was like, oh, how? But, they cut that stuff all the time. You never know.
Sure, you don't know what else is in it, right?
Yeah. And so I failed for cocaine, and I got back out. And then I kept on doing that. And then it got really, really bad. And I had to go. My mom figured out, like, I looked like crap, I looked terrible.
Sure.
I was like a black and white picture of myself. I had no color to my skin. My eyes were gray. My hair was all bleached and fried and just looked terrible because I just kept on messing with it, trying to make myself look better. My skin looked terrible. I wouldn't go anywhere without trying to slap on makeup first, like, because I didn't want anybody to see. And I was 90 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm 5'9". I'm 5'8". Of course,
so
I was a little bit shorter.
does it have the effect of suppressing your appetite, or was it just that you were spending so much time doing
I was just
all that?
I don't think it was necessarily an appetite suppressor,
just didn't
like cocaine and stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that, like, straight up makes you not want to eat, because I still would eat.
Right.
But I was just going so hard, and if I wasn't using, I was sleeping. Don't get me wrong, I would still munch out every now and then.
Sure.
But I wasn't taking care of myself. You're putting a bunch of chemicals in your body. Of course, it's going to mess you up. It doesn't matter how much you eat, how many Ensure shakes I would drink. I was still just so tiny, and it showed. So the person that I was seeing at the time, basically his mom and my mom kind of, like, got together and basically, like, set an intervention on us. And we were the ones selling and stuff too. So
So you were out on bond and you're selling drugs, basically. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I was. But they basically planned an intervention for us, and we both went to rehab on the same day at different rehabs. They were like, "This is it. Y'all are either gonna go.
Yeah.
You're either gonna go and you'll have our support, or y'all are cut. You were out of the house, and we didn't have anything. We were living, at at his family's house.
Right.
And his mom pays for his car and my family paid for my car. And I was like, well, we can't do this. Like, we
Right.
will not make it.
Yeah.
Like, we're making like $50 a day something.
Right.
And we have a habit to support. And so I
Right.
was like, I've never been to rehab. Like, I can't do this. And I just remember getting super, super messed up the day before. And then I begged my dealer to come all the way out to Toller because I live right here off Billings.
Mhm.
And I was out. And I literally remember stealing money from my stepdad, going in their closet and stealing money, $100, $100 bill out of his pants that he
Yeah.
had just put on the ground.
Sure.
And being like, I will give you this whole $100. Like, I'll give you $30 in gas and whatever for the, however many you'll give me.
Right.
And I was just so desperate. I was like, please, 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 please. And then my mom took my phone away from me. And eventually my dealer showed up. My stepdad found out that I stole the money. And I'm like, it wasn't me. You can't prove it was me.
Right.
Like, it wasn't
Right.
me,
Yeah.
know? And I would just lie straight to their faces, just look them in the eyes and tell them whatever they wanted to hear. And I wasn't a good liar as a kid. So my mom used to always believe me when I would look at her and be like,
Right.
it's not me.
Mm. Yeah.
And, that was just the sickness basically playing on the forefront.
Sure.
But she brought it out there, and then the next morning was the morning we were leaving for rehab. I went to the ranch at Clear Springs in Aquila, and he went to a different one. And so I just remember driving over there in the morning, and I saved one for both of us to split
Yeah.
before we went, like one last
Right.
hoorah.
Yeah.
And my mom drove me all the way over into Granbury so that I could say bye and so we could like part ways and stuff. And we basically did the drugs, and that was it. We took a
Right.
picture to kind of see like a before and after.
Sure.
And I was 18 years old doing my first rehab, and I was not ready. I wasn't done. I was forced
Right.
to be done. I was forced to go in there,
Sure.
and I didn't listen to anything that anybody said. I was in a super I don't want to say toxic because we are cool now. He's doing good and I'm doing good. But at the time we were very toxic for each other. It
Yeah.
was not anything that ever should have happened.
Sure.
We were together because we were both doing the same thing and hanging out with the same crowd.
Right.
And so we just did it together, but it was a very toxic time, and that's the only thing I was worried about the whole time I was in there was him.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about what he was doing. I was calling my mom. We only got calls like twice a week, and I'm like, have you heard anything?
Right.
Have you heard anything? How is he doing? And then I wasn't focused on myself because I wasn't done. I knew I wasn't done. I was high the same day I left.
Sure.
And so I did a 30-day program. My sister came and picked me up, handed me my phone back. We were in my car.
Right.
We drove all the way back here, and then my mom just tried to, be supportive, and my hair was all super blonde and fried and stuff, and so she had made me an appointment that day to get my hair done.
Right.
And so I went and got my hair done, and then I just remember directly after I got my hair done, one of our mutual friends that used to use with us too, she went with me to my hair appointment, and my mom let me have my car, and we went straight to the dealer's house in Granbury.
Wow. So
Same
can I
day.
ask a quick question? Your rehab was part of that like a detox period as well, or I mean,
Yes.
so I'm assuming you went through withdrawal. I mean, was that just a cold turkey type thing? You just had to deal with it, or was there? I know there are other drugs that some people take, I guess, to get them off of certain
Right.
things. But
Yeah, so it wasn't a cold turkey clinic or anything, but it was the first, I think, 4 or 5 days I was in a detox room,
yeah.
and they gave me Suboxone, which
Okay,
is something
yeah.
that it's like a sublingual
I've
film.
heard of that one, and methadone, I guess, is the other one I'm
Yeah.
aware of. Yeah.
Yep, we'll get to that part
Okay.
too, because I definitely had my dabble
Right.
with that.
Sure.
But Suboxone, it definitely helped me. It definitely helped, like, with the process of, like, my body healing.
Right.
But, I mean, you can't heal the mental part. If you're
Sure.
not ready, you're not ready.
Yeah.
My
That's
body
true.
physically got better in 4 days. I
Right.
stopped feeling so crappy and
Right.
all of those things, but I was just so, like, headlighted in on it.
Right.
And I didn't care.
I guess if relapse was only related to the physical aspect of it, a lot of people wouldn't
I don't
relapse,
think I would ever
right?
relapse,
Yeah.
and
So,
once I start feeling better and I start looking better,
Right.
who would go back?
yeah.
But it's a mental, like,
Yeah.
obsession. I was obsessed with it, and never pictured myself. Even today, it's like hard to picture like that I was like that. And I mean, I
Sure.
still am like that. That's a part of my story, and it's a part of always who I'll be. That's why I'm so open to talking about it.
Sure.
Because if I can help a 17-year-old girl or a 17-year-old guy that is doing the same thing right now that I was doing, I'm telling you, it does not get better. It gets
Yeah.
way worse. I've lost friends. I've lost, relationships. I've lost family relationships. I wasn't there for funerals that I should have been at.
Mm.
You can't get stuff like that back.
Yeah.
And for what?
And at the time, you probably didn't care at
I
all,
did
right?
not.
That you missed whatever you missed. I
No,
mean, it was all
I
about
wanted to sleep.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to take a nap,
Yeah.
so I missed it. But so I went to the rehab, and then I got out after 30 days. Was high the same day I got out, and kind of just kept on going. And then I got a call from Hood County. I think it was on my 19th birthday. They called my dad, actually, because my dad knows my bail bondsman.
Mm-hmm.
They called my dad saying Hood County has dropped Kate's charges because whatever was in those caps is not illegal yet.
Wow. Yeah.
There we go again. I
Yeah.
was like, can't touch me, you
Right.
know? And so I was like, okay. And then 90 days later, they passed it as an illegal substance.
Wow. Yeah.
And then it went away. So the thing about those caps and the synthetic fentanyl and all these things is the dealers change it one molecule off
Yeah.
of the original that they made illegal. And then they start producing like a different version, something that does something a little bit different, but will still get you hooked.
Yeah.
And then, people can get busted with it, but at the end of the day, they're going to get off and they're going to get their charges cleared because it's not technically legal because you break it down into a chemical aspect and that isn't illegal.
Right.
So that's how people were getting around it. The drug was getting weirder and stranger, and but like we kept on doing it because the physical part was still there.
Sure.
But they dropped my charges, and then I started to get a little bit better. I started to do it a little bit less, and then I actually started hanging out with some of my old friends again. And I have pictures from this time.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever I was turning 19, I got my first part of my tattoo done. I was hanging out with the right type of people, and I stopped.
Right.
I stopped. I was still drinking. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't doing anything because that's my friends don't do that.
Sure.
They're normal in a sense. But I stopped. I really did for a little bit, and then I don't know what it was with me. I switched back into it. Like I went back and forth. That's why like my story is, it's not unique, it's not different, it's just mine. But it's weird how looking back at it, like I could just be like, oh, I'm done. I want to hang out with these people, and I was like a chameleon. I would do whatever anybody else wanted to do.
Right.
And if they weren't cool with the drugs, I like would wean myself off and just get super drunk for a couple days, and then like the withdrawals would be over,
Yeah.
and just kind of be low key miserable because I wanted the drugs, but I wanted to hang out with them, so I was just all around miserable, just not happy. Me and my boyfriend, we broke up, and then I just switched back into it real quick. Like I just one day like dropped everything and went back to the caps and got back into it really, really hard. And then all of a sudden one day they just disappeared. And this is about the time that one of my friends passed away. He was
when you say your source for your drugs, is that what you mean?
They just stopped.
They were gone.
They were gone.
Yeah.
That's about one of the time. That's the time that one of my friends my first friend passed away
from an overdose.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he was really deep into it. He was selling too, and I was supposed to go up there that night, and I fell asleep. And he passed away from an overdose. Apparently mixing things, but he passed away, and I did go to that funeral.
Right.
I was there for that one. It was, it was here in Toller. But it wasn't enough to make me stop.
Right.
I literally had caps at his funeral in the bathroom.
Yeah.
In the church. And so kept on going, and then all of a sudden one day they just disappeared. The dealers stopped answering. The people that dealed under the dealers were running out, and like, obviously they're using too, and they're like, they're mad too because they're withdrawing. And then I had a friend who, he's doing good now too, so no ill will, but I'm just going to be honest because I'm sure if he ever watches this, he'll know. But he was like, and I was like, why are you not sick? Like, I'm
Yeah.
over here dying. Like, like we're trying to figure out how to get it. And so I went to his house. I'm like, do you know anybody? Like, I will pay $100 for one. I don't care. Like, I'll
Right.
do whatever I have to do. I was pawning stuff. I pawned my mom's jewelry. Like, I did everything. Like, I sold a tea. Like, I would go to the pawn shop every day over here off 377. And he's like, hey, what you got
Yeah.
today?
You were
Like, where did you
regular.
find
Yeah.
this?
Right.
And I was like, how are you not sick? I'm over here like chills, sweating, shaking, like just terrible, throwing up, doing so many things. And he's like, I have something else. He's like, but I don't know if you're gonna be into it. And I was like, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
That desperation.
If it makes me not sick, then
Yeah, that
right.
desperation. And it wasn't. I mean, you've never experienced a physical addiction. I hope you never have to, because it will bring you to your knees. And it has, and kept me there for a really long time.
Well, is that? I'm glad you bring that up. Maybe you can share. Is that? I know there's the psychological aspect of what it does
Right.
to you, but the physical part. I got to believe that part of it is also. If you've ever gone through a withdrawal, you probably don't want to. So, I mean, do you believe that also keeps you, taking the drugs
Absolutely.
because not only do you like the feeling, you don't want to go through the withdrawal. I mean, is
Yeah.
that an accurate
It is.
way of looking at it?
My a thing that I used to say all the time was, I'm not even getting high anymore. I just don't want to withdraw. I
Yeah.
don't want to get sick.
Right.
It's like if you're on a spectrum from 1 to 10, and then over here is the negative. Whenever I would wake up in the morning, I would be in here in the negative.
Right.
And I would just have to do some to get back to 0 to be okay. I wasn't getting high anymore.
Right.
I was not getting messed
Yeah.
up. I was just getting well, is what we would always
Right.
say. I just need to get well and I'll be good.
Right.
I'll be good. Like, I
Yeah.
can do my day. And that's what my world revolved around, was getting well. And I was terrified of the withdrawal because it hurts. It hurts
Sure.
physically, it hurts emotionally, it hurts, spiritually. It
Yeah.
just hurts. It's the worst thing ever. I've never experienced anything like it. There's nothing on this earth that has
Right.
been worse.
Can't even imagine. Yeah.
It's insane. And if you've never been through it,
You don't want to go through it,
do
do you?
not want to.
Right.
But I forgot where I was even at in the story.
So you were talking about that, you were kind of with different friends now, but your source for
okay.
the fentanyl or the synthetic fentanyl had kind of dried up, and
Right.
you were trying to find. You found someone that said there was something else that they were trying.
Okay, yeah. And so I was like, so what is it? Like, I don't care. I like, who are you talking to? Like, I'm down for anything. And they pulled out some syringes, some
Wow.
needles.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm terrified of needles. Like, I barely
Sure.
could do this tattoo. It's not my
Yeah.
thing. Like, I did not like it. I cry when I have to get shots or my blood drawn at the doctor.
Sure.
And he was like, well, it's heroin. And I was like, oh, no, not me. Like, I don't do
Wow.
heroin.
Yeah.
Like, that's lowest of the low. I would
Right.
never, could never. And he was like, okay. And I just watched him, like, do one. And then it's like the blood comes back into your face. It's insane what that stuff will do to your
Yeah.
body. It changes your reward system in your brain.
Yeah.
Makes you think that this is good, this is what you want, this is what you need. Like, it literally changes the chemical makeup of your mind,
Mm-hmm.
your opiate receptors and stuff, and just, it really will, it can screw you up for forever with your reward system and what you think you need. It takes years of, undoing. But I just saw him, and like, it just clicked for me, like, I want that.
Because you saw what it did to him,
and I
literally,
wanted
physically.
it. And I'm over here, like, can't stop wiping my nose. Whenever
Right.
you withdraw, you yawn all the time, and it hurts, and you're stretching, and it's just like your skin's crawling, and you're kicking your legs, and you're so fidgety. And that's in the beginning stages. But I was like, I don't care. And so we were in my car. We parked in a parking lot at an apartment complex in Granbury. Neither one of us lived there, but we thought it'd be a good place to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I whipped into a parking spot, and I parked, and I just, like, put my arm over into the passenger seat, and I said, just do it.
Mm.
And, like, I just remember, like, sitting there thinking, like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. You'll be fine here in a second. Like, a little bit of pain, worth it, right?
Yeah.
And this sounds, I'm not trying to glamorize or anything, but at the time it was worth it.
Yeah.
For me.
Sure.
And that was it. I was done.
You were hooked, in other words?
Yeah, I was well again.
Yeah, right.
And that's all I needed to get me going for the next 3 or 4 hours until I could figure out how to get some more.
Right.
And so it was off to the races. Um, at this time, I started dabbling with shooting up cocaine, which is a whole another ballpark.
Yeah.
Because I liked uppers, mind you, at the beginning. Like I liked
Sure.
the uppers, but the heroin was what was keeping me well.
Right.
And I had no charges on me at this time. I had been to rehab and gotten out already and screwed up again. And basically just doing whatever, working, getting fired, working at a place, getting fired. They knew they got fired.
Yeah.
I would just bounce around from bar to bar in Granbury. I've worked just about everywhere that you can in Granbury.
Right.
Bartending, literally.
Right. Yeah.
Serving, bartending, restaurants, you name it. I've probably been there.
Right.
They're probably like, when I walk in now, they're like, oh my God, you look so much better.
Yeah.
Where was that a couple years ago?
Right.
But so that I kept on going with that, and I kept on going with that, and then that's in October of 2017. I decided to move up to Dallas to go to cosmetology school while I'm, doing heroin.
Right.
And I wanted to get away, and I didn't have a spouse or anything like that, and I thought I can do this. Like there would be drugs in Dallas, blah blah blah.
Sure.
I got mine from Fort Worth, mind you.
Yeah.
We were driving to Fort Worth from Granbury every single day. I was getting up, going to work, serving, bartending. I was getting up, I was working to get high and getting high to work. Like it was a cycle. I got off work like every night at like 11 o'clock once they closed at 10. And me and my friend, we worked together at the same restaurant, me and him. And we would get off work and we would go to
So
Fort
you're
Worth.
still also, I guess, getting some of that and bringing it back and being a source for other people? Or at that point, had you stopped doing that?
I stopped doing that. I did not have enough. I didn't have
needed it all
enough
for
money.
yourself. Yeah.
I was selfish. I wanted it all for myself. I was even stingy about doing some with the person that I was with.
Right.
Because I had the car and
Sure.
I was the one driving, and
Yeah.
you should give me some,
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though I was going anyways,
Sure.
it was just crazy. But I never really got into selling. If somebody like wanted some like cocaine, we were really like it was a very small group of people that was shooting up heroin.
Right. Yeah.
Like actually shooting up heroin. There was like 4 of us.
Yeah.
But the cocaine, people in Granbury would like snort it at parties and stuff, but like we were they didn't know that we were shooting it. But if they wanted some, like I would get the money from them.
Right.
I would get it and I'd bring it back, but I wasn't just
Sure.
like, I didn't have a scale and wasn't dealing it.
I'm just curious, did it ever, I mean, probably not the first time, obviously, and maybe never, but did it ever occur to you that you were, also potentially exposing yourself to, HIV and those type of things?
So I wasn't very well educated on that.
Okay.
It wasn't really a conversation.
I'm not saying, people don't talk about it necessarily, but.
And now, which we'll get into that, being through what I went through here recently, we got educated on it. Every Monday was
Sure.
HIV and AIDS Day.
Right. Yeah.
And I did that for 10 months,
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how easy it was to contract. I was sharing needles. I mean, that's just me being honest.
Sure.
I was sharing needles. I was sharing spoons. The cottons that we would use. I thought, hey, there might be some more of that later when I get sick. We would share cottons, and then I'd like put them away, let them dry out so I wouldn't get cotton
Now tell
fever.
me, because I'm ignorant about this part. What's the cotton part for?
So the cotton part is for.
Are we talking about literally cotton, like a cotton
like a
ball?
cotton swab?
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you break a little piece off, and then you would put it into the spoon after you put the drugs into there with water.
Right.
That's what you heat up into the spoon.
Okay.
You put the cotton in there to filter before you draw it up into the syringe.
Okay.
And so it has an amount, in there.
Right.
So I'd put those out to dry out.
Right.
Because I thought maybe later I might want that.
Right.
Like it was just
sure
fiending for it. But we kept on going with that, working, doing all these things, going back and forth. And then one of my other friends passed away that we used with heroin. And his was Xanax too, shooting up heroin and Xanax. And I lost another one, and I missed the funeral for that.
Wow.
And I saw him almost every day. Using with him, running around with him. And I remember me and him would just have conversations like, he would tell me like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Like my life sucks and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like mine does too. I hate this, but what can we do? We would buy Suboxone from dealers.
Yeah.
You need like 5 or 6 strips of them. We would buy one and be like, okay, we'll split it up in a couple.
To try to get off.
We would make that commitment to stop. And then, oh, well, we'll get another one tomorrow next time we go up and get some more, black or heroin. And so we were just going round and round and round with that. And he passed away. And I've still got messages from him about how he doesn't want to do this
Sorry
anymore.
to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember getting so high the night before his funeral, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd missed it.
Yeah.
And everybody was texting me, "Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I was sleeping." I told him it was too much for me.
Right. Yeah.
But in all reality, I fell asleep.
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
crashed out at a friend's house, and so I kept on going with that. And then I moved up to Dallas. And he passed away once I'd already moved to Dallas. I'm just trying to get the timeline right. But I was living in Dallas. I started school. Was having to get high like during breaks and stuff. I had it made for me. Like my mom and my dad did everything that they could because they thought that I was better. I don't know how or why they thought I was better.
Yeah.
But because I wanted to do something. I just wanted to show them I could. I lived on top of the school that I went to in a high-rise apartment on the 16th floor. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Brand new, had never been lived in. We got a construction deal on it because they were still finishing them.
Right.
Had a rooftop view of the skyline of Dallas, a pool, like just any amenities. Had a golf room in there, golf simulator.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Right.
And I wasn't happy.
Right.
I was driving. I couldn't find any drugs in Dallas that I liked.
Right.
Because I switched from like tar heroin to China.
Mm-hmm.
So I was driving to Fort Worth every single night.
Yeah.
And driving over there, getting it, getting back at 3 o'clock in the morning, doing a bunch of drugs, passing out, and I had to go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's just like, eventually I fell off. Like I just stopped going. I remember like the director for the school always like texting me, calling me like, "Hey, are you coming? Like you've missed, like we're fixing to kick you out."
Right.
Oh, I'll do the makeup groups. I've got a lot going on at home. Like I've got family problems. I don't have family problems.
Right.
I am the family problem. But they tried to work with me. They knew. I mean, I just remember the girls at school. One of the girls I was cool with, she was like, "Yeah, one of the girls was saying like I think Kate's on drugs," and I'm like, "What? That's ridiculous." She's like, and I had her fooled too, and I felt so bad. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, that's so ridiculous." She's like, "Yeah, I know. Like, you're just so cool. Like, you're just laid back. Like, you're not on drugs. You're just you." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is just me. How dare them?"
Mm-hmm.
They just knew.
Right.
But God, it's crazy. And so I went through all that, and I kept on going and going and going. And this was October, November 2017, December. And then I came home for New Year's, December to January, going into 2018. And my mom, like, found needles in my car when I came down. And she shut everything down. Because I already got kicked out of school. I told her, like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But I want to live in Dallas. And she's like, I'm not going to pay for you to be in that apartment. Yeah. It's, $1,300 a month for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And I was like, well, whatever. And so we did an early release on the lease. But she found out when I came down here. She found needles in my car. She found all these things. And she shut it down. She locked me down. I was stuck. Yeah. I detoxed in my room off of heroin. Wow. For a day, and then I was finally like, I can't do this, like we're gonna have to do something, like I will die, Mom, I will die. Yeah. And so I think January no, it wasn't for New Year's, it was the end of January, because January 28th was my intake date at the methadone clinic. So it was like end of January whenever I came down. January 28th of 2018 was the intake day that I started taking methadone. Is that
in Fort Worth? Or where
it was in Fort Worth. Okay. It is an everyday clinic you go to and you take your dosage. Methadone is a supplement to try and help you get off of heroin. Right. It's a medical thing. It's a liquid that you have to go in and get your dosage correct. Make sure that you get, like, you work your way up. You start low, and then for the first week, like, you're getting to your correct dosage until you don't be sick anymore. then you stay at that, and over time you can dwindle down. It's supposed to
Right.
be a safer way to get off of heroin. And for a little bit it was. I was only doing the methadone because my mom was going with me and
Right.
back, and it just
You had some accountability
I had some
there.
accountability, some
Right.
forced accountability. When I was going up to the methadone clinic, it just happened to be right next to my drug dealer's house.
Oh no.
And my mom had no idea. You know, it was
Right.
off Camp Bowie.
Okay.
And the people up there are amazing too. I actually stopped in and saw them not too long ago.
At the clinic, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did that from January. And keep in mind, like, I had the accountability in the beginning and I was only doing the methadone. But then when my mom started to trust me again, she gives me a little bit of rope to hang myself with.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to the dealers and I went back to going and getting the coke. And then I would go to the methadone clinics in the morning, have all my drugs, and get back and go to work and do it all again the next day.
Mm.
And methadone clinics drug test you. They will not deny you medication if you fail a drug test, which I always did.
Mm.
But I signed the HIPAA thing saying they can't tell my mom anything
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I was
Sure, you were an adult at that
I
point.
was an adult.
Yeah.
So I thought.
Yeah.
But so my mom's like, why aren't you getting take homes? Like after a certain amount of time, you start to get, a take home, so you don't have to go every single day. And I'm like, I don't know, it's crazy, I don't know. And whenever she would call the office, they're like, we can't release any information.
Right.
I'm sorry, we know it's your mom, but that's literally we're not allowed to. And so I kept on doing that, getting the heroin, getting the cocaine, and I kind of stopped with the weed, and I stopped with the alcohol because it would make me sick.
Right.
And it cost too much money. I
Sure.
had my two things that I wanted.
Right.
And I made sure I got those. I got the
Right.
heroin first and foremost. That was non-negotiable. If I had
Yeah.
extra, I'd go get the cocaine because I liked the upper, but I needed the heroin to bring me down so I could sleep.
Yeah.
But the heroin was on the forefront. And I kept on going with that, and then we're going into February, March, April. And April 2018 is whenever I didn't get pulled over. I fell asleep in the old Taco Bueno parking lot here in
Oh,
Granbury
no.
before it turned to
Yeah.
a Golden Chick.
Right.
I did a shot. I was waiting on my friend to get off of work. One of my good friends. Like, she's
Right.
not a bad friend, but waiting on her to get off of work, and I was trying to do it before I went and hung out with her.
Right.
So I pulled over, and mind you, my mom's office is right next to that.
Right.
I don't know why I didn't pull into my mom's office. My car wouldn't have got towed.
Right.
But I pulled into the Taco Bueno parking lot. I did a shot, and next thing I know, I'm waking up to
Someone knocking on the
and
window.
I was mad at first. I was like, shh.
Yeah.
I thought it was Emily. I was like, oh crap, now I'm gonna have to explain this to her. And it was an officer. It was two. I was like,
Right.
oh. And I've got a needle hanging out of my arm
Oh my.
and a spoon
Yeah.
and all these other things. And he was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, bye.
Yeah.
Like putting stuff
Right.
away. And I had done all of the drugs already.
Mm.
I'd finished it.
Wow.
I had a little bit left with what was in the spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, why don't you go ahead and roll down your window for me? And I was like, I'm okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just tired. I just got off work. You see I have my work shirt on. I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go. And he was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
He was like,
Yeah.
we were shining the flashlight on you for like 5 minutes and you didn't wake up. And so we knocked on the window. They had the Narcan ready.
Yeah.
They thought I had overdosed.
Mm.
And so they were like, you can step out of the car for me. I was like, okay. So I got out of the car, and they're like, do we want to search your car? And I was like, for what? And they're like, well, we can see the needle sitting there. And I'm like, I take insulin. Like, oh, what about the spoon? I'm like, I don't know. It was like insanity. I just really thought I could get out of it.
Yeah.
Whatever I thought of at the time, they're like, it's illegal to lie to a cop, right? And I'm like,
Sure.
I'm not lying.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to search your car. And I'm like, you can get the drug dog. I know my rights. You can't search it without drug dog hitting on it. And I was like, it doesn't matter what you see.
Right.
And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
So they got
Called
the
your
drug dog.
bluff. Yeah.
Called my bluff, and they got the drug dog, and that drug dog went bing, 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 bing all over my car. And I was like, this is crap. And so I sat there and watched them while they ripped my car apart, literally. Took this, my seats are not, they've got the zippers on the back, but it's like the seat. Like, there's no seat covers. They just got a zipper thing, and I've got stuffing missing, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
Weird. It wasn't necessary, but I guess people could hide stuff back there.
Sure.
But please don't rip it. But they tore it apart, and they basically came up with a thing of needles. They put it on the hood of the cop car.
Mm-hmm.
Thing of needles, spoon, and an empty baggie.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is what was left. I'm just assuming out of your party night. And I was like, so what are you going to charge me with, paraphernalia?
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on here? Because that's not a
Right.
jail. You don't take somebody to jail for paraphernalia.
Right.
Because like I educated myself over time with the law.
Yeah.
Like I made sure that if it were
If
to
you
ever
ever
happen,
stop, you would have
yeah,
a story.
I would know what to say.
Yeah.
And not that I really knew any of what I was talking about, but they thought they probably didn't
Sure.
get it either. But,
They had probably heard it before, but
of course.
Yeah.
And so they were like, I was like, so what is this charge going to be? You want to read me my Miranda rights? You know, I was just being a smart ass.
Sure.
Just making it worse. Like
Right.
maybe they would have given me a paraphernalia charge. And they said, what's on that spoon? Nothing anymore. And they scraped the spoon just enough
to get a test.
to get
on
a
it.
test on it.
Yeah.
And it tested positive for heroin.
Wow.
And they were like, well, that's enough to charge you. And it literally, like, you couldn't even see anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's enough to charge you with a controlled substance, a paraphernalia, and to deliver, because I had baggies and stuff. And I was like, I'm not delivering anything. Those are mine. They said, and so later on I find out, so they arrest me. I'm like, great, another controlled substance. This one tested positive. I'm not getting out of this one.
Right.
So they arrested me, and they take me to jail, and, you know, that whole thing happens. And, of course, my mom gets me out again.
Mm-hmm.
She gets me out. I'm like, I have my methadone clinic. I have to go in the morning. Like, I will get sick. Blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. I messed up. I promise I'll do better. Whatever. That was in April. And they only charged me with a controlled substance under a gram. They didn't give me a paraphernalia ticket. They didn't give me the intent to deliver. They didn't give me all that.
Right.
They just gave me across the board controlled substance under a gram, which looking back, I'm thankful for. So they just gave me that, and so I get out, and now I'm back on the whole bond UA situation again.
Right.
I'm back to having to go up there. I just remember the lady was like, nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks. And so I'm doing that all the way up until the beginning, and, you know, still doing whatever.
Right.
And so that's from April all the way to October of 2018, which is my sober date. The beginning of October, I took a bond UA, and I failed again for cocaine, but I was shooting cocaine too.
Right.
You know, I guess
Sure.
I didn't stop enough in time.
Right.
But the heroin I could still do because Hood County doesn't test, which they really should. Y'all should.
Yeah.
Y'all should start testing more than a 3-panel stick drug test. They test for methamphetamines. They test for marijuana or THC. Methamphetamines, THC, and I don't know what the other one is now that I'm thinking about it.
But
It's
it's
been
not
so long.
heroin?
Oh, and cocaine.
Okay.
Methamphetamines, THC, and cocaine.
I mean, you would think with, at least from what I hear with, you know, heroin and you know, fentanyl, you would think that they would add that somehow. But,
Right. It's a 3-step drug test for bond UAs in Hood County.
Oh, you mean, okay, for
Yeah.
the bond part. But,
the bond
okay.
part.
Not that that's not important, but you're not talking about when you get potentially pulled over or something like that.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm assuming
they've got
test
the
for all
whole
kinds of stuff then.
yeah, they test for everything when
Yeah.
you get pulled over.
Okay.
But for the bond UAs, it is a 3-stick drug test, and so I was still doing my heroin all the time, still going in like, you can't catch me with this.
I mean, I've heard something. I say crazy. I literally just found that out this week because one of the things we're pushing to do is to get more. You had mentioned it, naloxone. You know, obviously, you know, want to try to save lives at the same time that we're trying to help people through education and other things to never go there. But if they go there,
Right.
hopefully get them to where you're at now in recovery. But they also sent with the little kit that we got basically test strips, I guess, where you can test for, you know, for fentanyl, because I guess that's such a big deal now, where fentanyl's being put into a lot of these drugs.
being put into Xanax, it's being put into the heroin. Like people think they're just taking a Xanax or a bar,
Yeah.
and it's cut with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And which is scary because
Yeah.
it's a whole different tolerance. You can have a tolerance to Xanax.
Sure. Yeah.
This little bit of fentanyl will kill
Well,
you.
Yeah, we had posted on our on Facebook the, you know, this basically beaker of heroin and then fentanyl, and you know, just the difference, how much. Well, it's something like 50% or 50 times. I mean, stronger
50
than
times.
heroin. So it's bad stuff.
It's bad. But so
So you're going back and getting those bond tests again.
So I'm getting those bond tests again, and in early October, like the first drug test of October, that first Monday, I failed for cocaine, which I'm not surprised. At that time, I was like, well, I could understand that one. I'm like, what are you
Right.
talking about? Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's so crazy. Send it to the lab. I'm sure it'll be fine. The lab is where they see the heroin. And
Oh
they
man.
see,
Yeah.
So the adult probation department head over there, me and her went round and round. She's always like, you know, you were so much better than this. Stop it. And so she got the lab test results back. And when I came in for my next drug test, she called me into her office and was like, so your results are back from your last one. I said, you know what's going to happen now, right? And that was October 25th of 2018, the third Monday in October. And I was like, I'm going to jail, and my mom will get me back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like that. She was like, okay, well, you're playing with fire, you know that, right, kid? And I was like, yeah, and I'm always gonna win. I didn't say that, but like I
Sure,
thought
that's what you're thinking.
I was always gonna
Yeah.
win. Mind you, in October, then I'm on methadone maintenance. I'm shooting up heroin. I'm doing cocaine. I've created a physical dependence on the cocaine, a very much physical dependence on the heroin, and very much on the methadone. Methadone is an extended release medication. Over time, it gets into your bones, and your body has to have it.
Craves it as well.
It craves it more than the heroin, which I never thought. I don't really know how I feel about methadone nowadays.
Well, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but even if it's maybe not, and I don't know, I wish I knew more about methadone, and I'm going to learn more about it. But it seems to me that even if it wasn't quote unquote as bad for you physically or whatever as heroin, it's you're still enslaved to it, right? I mean, you're still dependent on a substance.
I drove up to Fort Worth every morning from January 28th until October 25th.
Yeah.
And there's clients at that clinic, they get take homes, mind you, because they're doing better, but that have been there for 10 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I never thought I'd get off of it. And I never would have if I wouldn't have gone in this last time.
Yeah.
But whenever I went in for that drug test, or for another drug test, they arrested me, and my mom was up there with me, and like she took my phone and stuff because I already knew. I said, this is what's going to happen when I go up there. They're going to arrest me.
Right.
You're going to go and you're going to get me out because I have methadone clinic in the morning. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And a day goes by, and I'm in the holding cell, and I'm starting to get antsy. They won't let me out for a phone call because they don't have to. And I'm getting irritated and stuff, and like I got to this point where I'm like, you need to let me out. You need to let me talk to my mom. Like, this is bullshit. Or I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is not okay.
I get it.
And so we kept going and going, and finally they let me out. And my mom, I call her and I'm like, I'm getting sick. Like, I'm not okay. Like, I need you to let me out of here. She's like, I'm not letting you out. And I was like, what? I said, I'm on methadone. You know what's going to happen in here. She said, at least I know if you're in there, you are alive. I wonder every night as a mom if I'm going to get that call at 3 a.m. that your daughter's dead in a ditch. And it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't answer for 5 or 6 days at a time, but then you show back up to the office like, hey, I need money, you know?
Right.
She's like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot stand. At least I know if you're in there, you are alive. I said, no, I will die in here. I will die. And so she's doing everything that she can. She's calling the methadone clinic, which can bring dosages of methadone to a Hood County jail, or to a jail.
Right.
If the jail signs off, and then the mayor has to sign. It's like all these things that have to happen. At that point, I'm 3 days into withdrawal, you know. They moved me from the holding cell back to population in Hood County. I'm like, oh crap, I'm really staying here. So I start going through like the worst thing of my life. I didn't sleep for 5 days, and I'm in population.
Sleep, was it out of fear of what might happen while you're in there? Or
insomnia is a really big part of withdrawal.
Part of the withdrawal, okay.
So the way that I went through the withdrawal was the first 3 days I withdrew off of heroin because you start to feel it after like 16, 24 hours not having it. Methadone is extended release, right? You'll stay good for a day off of methadone when you don't have it. You'll be okay. It like still is in your bones, still circulating through your body.
Yeah.
So for the first 2 or 3 days, I'm feeling the heroin withdrawals, and that sucked, right?
Sure.
Didn't feel good. The cocaine withdrawals, I'm like, just really pissy and antsy and stuff like that. And when I started to feel just a little bit better, here comes the methadone withdrawals. And that was a whole nother level of not okay.
It's even worse than
It's even
all the others.
worse.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I've experienced it one time, and since then I will never experience it again. I
Right.
won't.
Yeah.
And I got into that, and I think it was because I've slept off of heroin withdrawals before,
Sure.
but I could not sleep off of methadone withdrawals. I stayed awake for 5 days, and I thought I was going insane. And I'm sure my bunkies, if they ever watch this in Hood County, I'm really sorry, but I'm sure they thought I was crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And I was a little bit crazy.
Sure.
It was October 25th is when I went in, and that's the last time I've ever used. And until November 1st. That's whenever I withdrew, was in holding in county. And finally I called my mom, and I was like, please, like October 31st on Halloween, and I'm like, we're watching, there's like the scary movies on Lifetime and stuff, and I'm like, I'm going crazy, like I'm freaking out, like I really need out of here, like I will do whatever. I just
So
told
are you
her
at that point waiting a trial kind of thing, or
they were just gonna keep me in there until I went to court,
Oh, okay.
basically.
Right.
Yeah. And my mom was like, at least I know when you're in there, you're
Right.
alive. And like,
Yeah.
it had come to that, you know,
Right.
and that was sad, but it was true. And I called her and I said, I am ready to do whatever you want me to do. Please get me out of here. I don't care where I have to go. She said, will you go to rehab? I said, yes.
Yeah.
I wanted out. Wanted
Sure.
out. I was, you know, I just felt like a caged animal more than anything. I just
I
was
can only imagine.
freaking
Yeah.
out because of the walls, and
Mm-hmm.
whew, I'm claustrophobic. And it was a very small cell with 5 people, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so she's calling around for rehabs, and she put me in one where I wouldn't know anybody. She took me all the way to Abilene.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I called her back, and she's like, okay. So I called the jail, and I called the rehab, and you were gonna have to do your intake interview to the rehab to tell them what all you were on to get accepted through the insurance, because we have insurance.
Sure.
And I was like, okay. And so they call me out of the cell. I have to go up to the front desk, and like you know, detained.
Right.
But I've got literally the phone with the guards like over the intake counter.
Right.
And I wasn't detained, but like I had to keep my hands down, and like they
Right.
let me sit there and talk, and like these poor officers are sitting there, and they're like, so what are you on? Like, what's your problem? Like, they're super understanding at the rehab. I'm like, heroin, cocaine, methadone,
Sure.
blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And those guys were just like, you know, I mean, I'm sure they've heard it all, but like
Sure.
to hear it from somebody that
Yeah.
was so young,
Right.
and like just, I'm sure I fit the
Yeah.
picture then, but
Sure.
they just kept on shaking their heads, and I was like, when can I come? When can I come? And they're like, tomorrow. It's like, I can't wait till tomorrow, but you know, I did.
Yeah.
And so November 1st, my mom bonded me out. We made a deal with, you know, my bail bondsman that I would take my UAs at the rehab, and we would report
Right.
the paperwork over.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, okay, great. So I got out of jail November 1st that morning, and mind you, I still hadn't used, so my sober date to this day is October 25th,
That's great.
2018.
Yeah.
I still hadn't used, and I got picked up from the jail by my bail bondsman. Out of everybody, my bail
Yeah.
bondsman picked me up, and because my mom was waiting at my lawyer's office.
Right.
And my mom and my lawyer and my dad and my lawyer, you know, conflict of interest, but they know each other.
Right.
Whatever. I got picked up, and I got drove to my lawyer's office, and they all sat down, and they were like, look, you are in trouble.
Right.
You will not go anywhere. You will go to this rehab. You will do what you're supposed to do. And maybe whenever your court date comes, they will show you some mercy
Right.
and give you 4 years probation.
Wow.
And I was like,
What were you? Do you know what you were facing otherwise?
I should have just been facing 4 years probation.
Okay.
That's what it should have been for a first-time offender with a controlled substance.
Okay.
But the judge for Hood County, the felony judge, he's not stupid, and he
Yeah.
can sentence you to what he will later on find out
Right.
what he did sentence me
Okay.
to.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, great. Like I'm gonna get probation anyways, but whatever. I just need out of here. I just wanted out of jail. And so my plan, my underlying thoughts were, I'm gonna get to whatever jail this is in Fort Worth. And I'm gonna call my dealer, and I'm gonna jump the fence and buy. You know,
Wow.
that was my insane
Yeah.
thoughts. And then we start getting on I-20 and going that way. And whenever we were at the
So
lawyer's
you
office,
didn't know where you were going?
I had no
really?
idea.
Okay. You had talked to them
I
on
knew
the
it was
phone,
the ranch
but
at
you
Clear
didn't know.
Springs, or I
Yeah.
knew it was Serenity House, but
Right.
I
You didn't know physically where
I
they
mean,
were.
I'm sure they told me, but I was just like,
Yeah.
you know, wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
And so we get, we're going towards Lipan, and then we go on
Yeah.
20, and I'm like, where are we going? And she's like, Abilene. I'm like, no, we're not. She's like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
She had my bag packed. She picked me up from the lawyer's office, and we did not stop in Granbury. She thought I was going to bolt out of the car.
Yeah.
We didn't stop in Granbury. We didn't stop at home. I didn't have a phone. It was nothing.
Sure.
Nothing. Which was, looking back, that's the smartest thing she could have done. She wouldn't stop the car.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to pee. She's like, you
Yeah.
can go when we get there.
Right.
Which is insane now. Like, being, what was I? Was I 20? That's so sad. I was 19. No, I was in 2018. Yeah, I was 19. No, I was 20. And because I'm 22 now, I keep on thinking I'm still 21. Gosh, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I was 20.
Yeah.
And so she took me out there, and that's crazy. I couldn't even remember my own age. She took me out there, and November 1st, I checked into Serenity House, and my plan still was to use that detox phone because they don't have phone calls twice a week. They've got a phone in the room with
Right.
you, and you can call whoever and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a choice if you want to be there at that one.
Right.
They have the insurance side of Serenity, and they have a
Mhm.
state-funded side.
Mm.
Not a side we're all together, but like that's
Sure.
like their program.
Right.
There's people that will come there just whenever their insurance can get them in instantly, like me.
Right.
And there's people that are begging to get in there with the state funded
Sure.
for free. You just get
Yeah.
on a list, and whenever they've got a bed, they will take you. So
That's
it was
great.
both.
Yeah.
It was the best place I've ever been to. I would love to, be a part of something like that
Sure.
someday. But there was people that wanted to be there,
Right.
and it showed.
They had come to the conclusion that that's what
Yeah,
they needed
and
to
they
do.
waited.
And then that seems to me to be one of the turning points. I mean, at some point, I guess you got to realize that you need that.
Mm-hmm.
Not suggesting it's easy, right? But at least you have
Yeah.
to come to the determination that you
Yeah.
you need some help.
And so my turning point was fixing to come for me, because my plan when I got there was still to call my dealer and call whoever I could, my friend, who I
Yeah.
thought was my friend,
Sure.
and come and get me some drugs. And
Yeah.
they were all like, no.
Yeah.
Like, you got money? No. You have anything? No.
Right.
Then what am I doing? Why am I going to come get you? I was like,
Right.
because it's me. Like, what do you mean?
Exactly.
And so they all told me no. And here I am going through detox. And like by this point, I'd been sober for a week. I didn't drink water. I didn't eat. I'm 85 pounds. And at that time, I was about the height I am now. And I
Right.
just like was feeble, like
Yeah.
so pale. I work at a tanning salon now, so that's why
Sure.
I tan. But,
Right.
I just looked so sick, and like I just had sores all over my face where I would get to, be up for days and just like go crazy. But I wasn't in my right state of mind, and so they gave me Subutex, which is like it's a form. It's a buprenorphine and naloxone, but it's not as strong as Suboxone. It's kind of for your in stages, and so
Okay.
they tapered me off with that, and so I could get some sleep. I didn't
Right.
sleep the whole time
Sure.
that I was in jail.
Wow.
I got to that rehab, and they finally gave me some medicine, and I slept for like 26 hours.
Wow.
I ended up wetting the bed because I
Right.
slept for so long. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I finally
Yeah.
got up and I like emerged, and
Right.
I was like trying to figure out something, and I started calling people like, okay, I'm done with this. I got some sleep. I'm good. Like I
Right.
need somebody to come get me. And they all
You were
told me
already
no.
ready. You're like, it's good now. I can leave.
Yeah, it's good now. Like
Right.
I'm sober. I'm great.
You're right.
And so no, everyone said no, and I finally just like I walked outside to this gazebo thing where we could smoke cigarettes or like smoke your vape and
Right.
stuff. And I walked out to this gazebo because I was in like the detox, cool little cushy comfort couches,
Right.
stuff. They got a TV, you can just hang out in there and color all day. But there's a
Right.
gazebo right outside before you go into the main where you have classes and stuff.
Mhm.
I walk out to that gazebo and I light a cigarette, and I'm just sitting there like fuming, like just steaming. And I just like flicked my cigarette and was like, if this is what you want, like just talking
Yeah.
to God, like if this
Yeah.
is what you want, then I am done.
Right.
Like I will do whatever. I'm done.
Right.
And like I didn't really have like a very much of a spiritual side to me before then.
Sure.
I was like, well, this is my plan, and God must hate me,
Right.
like whatever. And
Sure.
so I was so angry. Like I was
Right.
so mad. I was like, if this is what you want, then show me something. Show me this is what you want, you know?
Right.
And there was no burning bush moment or anything like
Sure.
that with me, but it was just like a sense of like calmness. Like it was just like everything got like super calm.
Literally in
first.
that moment you're talking about.
It
Or
wasn't like in that moment like the tree stopped
yeah.
moving or anything,
No,
but it's
no, but
just
I'm
like
saying in that moment you felt some kind of a
I just felt ease for the
indication.
first time
Yeah.
in a long time. Like, this is where
Right.
you're supposed to be. I felt comfortable. I was just like, all of a sudden, thankful I wasn't in jail. Like, I was just
Sure.
like, chill out.
Right.
You were where you're supposed to be. You're fine. You're safe. You're getting sober. You're getting better. And like,
Yeah.
and I can't explain it. It wasn't anything like that
That's
I ever would have believed in before. It's not
sure.
anything that, any I say normal person, but anybody like me in the past would have been like, yeah, you're full of it. Like, that
Sure.
doesn't happen. Because it
Right.
didn't happen for me ever. And I finally just stopped. I just stopped fighting. I just gave up. I started listening in the groups.
Right.
So I got out of detox and I moved over to population. I moved over
Sure.
to the normal,
Yeah.
I moved over to the normal
Sure.
side,
Right.
had my room. I had a roommate and,
Right. Was there a faith portion to that
mhm.
particular, or is it faith based in a sense?
It's spiritually based.
Okay.
It's not a spiritual program, but
Right.
they talk about a higher power,
Okay.
whatever it be.
Kind
They'll
of like
say
the
it's
NA
like
or Narcotics
yeah. So they
Anonymous
follow those
or
principles,
AA.
like
Yeah.
whatever your higher power is, whether it's
Right.
like you manifesting in yourself,
Yeah.
whether it's God, whether it's like whatever you want it to be, but it is not yourself.
Right. Sure.
It is not a human being because at the end of the day, they will always let you down. It needs to be something greater than you.
Right.
And so, I mean, for me, mine is God,
That's great. Yeah.
and so I just finally just stopped. I just gave up and I started listening and I tried to become teachable and get back to my old self the way that my family raised me.
Right.
And like, I mean, you
And you
can
hadn't been that way in what, 5 years or so now, right? If I'm
since
doing the
I
math
was
right.
15, man.
Right.
Even then I was a little turd,
Right.
I
Yeah.
was better. I was
Sure.
pretty quiet, but I was better.
Right.
But I just saw such a big change in myself. Like, and to this day, people like ask me all the time, like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I just do what I'm supposed to do.
Mm. Yeah.
I just make the little decisions every day. Should I, sleep till 8 o'clock when I have to work at 8:30, or should I get up and take a shower and like
Right.
just do the stupid little simple things? And I swear it's so much easier.
Well, can I ask a quick question while you're
Uh
thinking
huh.
about maybe where you want to go next with that? Because I
Yeah.
think it's timely since what you've just said.
Right.
Now that you're in recovery, do you have a group of people that have gone through something similar? In other words, how do you stay accountable? How do you? Because I got to believe it would still be really hard to do it if it was completely on your own. I
For
mean, I
sure.
know willpower. Certain people have more than others, but
Right.
nonetheless, I got to believe it would
It's
be
your,
better.
yeah, willpower will get you half of the way.
Yeah.
Willpower goes along with like fear of failure.
Sure.
And so that can get you so far. But at some point, you have to put into like your temple, put into yourself positive things, not just have the willpower to keep this bad stuff out. You have
Sure.
to put the good stuff in to keep it good. Um, I currently live in Austin. I moved down there to do sober living. I
Mm.
live with 4 other women that
Oh
are all in
wow.
recovery.
Okay. That's
I am
awesome.
surrounded by it. I mean, for the girls that I live with, like some of them are into meetings. I'm not a super big NAAA person. I have no problem telling my story, but
Hmm.
I do work a lot and like I keep myself busy. I work 2 jobs right now. Just for right
Kay
now.
told me a little bit, by the way, about your new
Yeah,
job,
I
so that's
did.
pretty exciting.
Yeah.
About can I say it? I mean, or
Mhm.
it's like George, or no, I mean the governor's doctor, right, or something like
Mhm.
that.
It is. It
Abbott.
is.
I couldn't think of it for some reason.
Yeah.
Greg Abbott. So
If
you're
you're
working
watching
for,
this, Greg Abbott, I work
yeah.
for your doctor.
That's pretty
I
cool.
do. Yeah, I got it's who you know. It's one of the girls that,
Yeah,
is
that's in your group. That's one of the girls
no,
that's.
it's just
Oh,
like a girl that's in recovery.
okay. Yeah.
And you just in who you know when you're
Right.
doing good and they see something good in you and like I think my story and like my testimony and stuff has a lot to do with it, like my resilience and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll rewind and finish real quick because
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
getting close to the
Sure.
end of it. But
Yeah.
so I did the rehab thing. I ended up deciding that I wanted to stay for a little bit longer because I like finally started like want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't leave till December. I would have been November 1st to December 1st, and I didn't leave till December 15th.
So you were there for about a month and a half. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they finally were like, "You need to go. You're
Right.
fine."
Yeah.
And so I signed up for sober living in Abilene at the
Okay.
Legacy House. It's an extension of Serenity, it's their sober house.
Right.
So I got into Serenity. I was paying, my $150 a week to stay there. It was super nice, really big house, but it was like a
Right.
facility, like upstairs girls,
Is it
downstairs guys.
okay? I was about to ask if it was just girls or
The one I live
only,
in now
or
is just a house of girls, but like
okay.
that one was kind of like based out of the rehab. So like they wanted to make it for like guys downstairs. It's like the guys' living room, the guys' kitchen, and then the
Mm-hmm.
hallways with their rooms, and then you go up the stairs over here, and it's
Okay.
the girls' kitchen and living
Right.
room, and then a bunch of rooms.
So for those that are watching, big plug for Serenity House. It sounds like I don't know a lot about them, but it sounds like
It is
a great
amazing.
organization in
It's
Abilene.
amazing.
So yeah,
It was a life changer for me for sure, and I didn't think there would be anything to do that for me.
sure.
It was a very positive environment, but
Right.
also one that would accept you where you're at and
Right.
try and work on where you are, not just be like, okay, so everybody needs to be exactly this way.
Sure.
The first one I went
Right.
to, it was very like, you will be like
Right.
this.
I mean, I know. I'll just briefly mention. I know a story of a man. I don't know a lot about him, but I don't know if
Hmm.
you've heard of this group called Shatterproof. I mean, it's fairly well known, I guess, out in the whatever. But unfortunately, his son passed away from an overdose, and
Okay.
he, started this thing as well. And I think you really said an important part, which is to say, I mean, there's a lot of I hear the stories of a lot of different recovery places, and his story was his son had gone through 7 different recovery things, and they were all different. And one was like basically, okay, just man up, get over it, kind of thing, and others were
Hmm.
this and that and the other. So I'm obviously glad to hear that you were
I found the one that works
found.
for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
And the first one that I went to, I have a friend that's still sober today from that one. That wasn't my story.
sure,
Humans are different. We're all
yeah,
gonna learn differently, adhere to different, principles, and like the different things are gonna stick with what people say. But I truly believe when you are ready, you will
right.
hear the right things.
So what do you, I mean, maybe you could say, I mean, and it's probably not just one thing, but
Right.
what do you think made Serenity House and that environment and everything different? What made it stick? What made it, finally, yeah, do you think a lot of it was just you were ready? In other words,
That's
that
what I was
kind of
just
that,
fixing to say.
okay,
Yeah, I think I was tired.
yeah,
I was tired. I wasn't gonna make it another 6 months doing what I was. I would have died.
right,
I would have.
yeah,
I literally would have died. I was very close. I was very sick. Um, just my whole everything. I was just done.
right,
I didn't care. I was doing the biggest shots that I could fit into a needle, literally
wow,
until no more would dissolve with the water
mm,
to where it like reached its,
yeah,
max absorption. And it still wasn't doing it. I
mm,
wasn't suicidal by any means. Like I don't want that to be like the message here because I never wanted to die, but I didn't care if it happened.
sure. But
I
in other
didn't,
words, right.
yeah, I didn't want to have to worry about hurting everybody.
So what I think I'm hearing, in other words, are you saying you think you would have eventually died because you would have just kept trying to take more and more and more,
Yeah, I would
and
have
you would have
eventually.
eventually overdosed? Is
Yeah,
what you're,
eventually.
yeah,
I wasn't on a mission, but I
sure.
know myself
It
and I
was just
wasn't
the
stopping.
trajectory that you
It
were
was
on.
the line that I was going
Yeah,
on for sure,
right,
definitely. But I think I was just done. I was tired and I was ready to listen. I mean, I just some people are done at different points. Like one of the girls I went to rehab with, she was 18 and I was 18 at that first one,
right,
and she was done.
sure,
But she had been doing it for a lot shorter. Like you just have to be done when you're done,
right,
and nobody can make that happen for you. But addiction is a weird thing. It doesn't discriminate. It will take a hold of the rich, the poor, the pretty, the
right.
ugly, you know, it doesn't matter.
I think
You,
that's really great that you're saying that, only in the sense that I think a lot of people have this thought that there's a certain kind of person that, I mean, and
hmm,
we're not, this is not even your story, but maybe for the benefit real quick of those that are watching this,
yeah,
I think you make a very good point. I mean, there are people that, break their leg, go in and get, given some oxycodone, and then their
then all
story
of a
is
sudden,
now they're on heroin,
yeah,
because they can't take the oxy anymore, and then the
yeah,
heroin potentially has the fentanyl in it, and unfortunately overdose, and they're no longer with us
yeah.
anymore.
The
So
big pharma is a very big pharmaceutical companies. They're getting really hit hard on by the government about how much they're allowed to give and like if there's alternatives and stuff like
yeah,
that because like people's lives get changed, which I get at the end of the day. It's a personal choice whether you want to abuse them or not. But if you are taking a prescription medication for pain
yeah,
and that pain isn't going away eventually, it takes 3 days to get physically
yeah,
dependent on something.
right,
You're not only going to hurt for 3 days,
right.
And
Well,
then like
and
what happens after that?
right, and to your point, I mean, it's still quite common though for them to get whatever it is, 30 pills, right? 30 days worth when they maybe only really need 5 or 3.
Exactly. That's why they're cutting down. They're
Right.
making them come in for visits to like do like a pain scale
Yeah.
and stuff like that, which is good. Instead of just writing off another prescription, and then that's how stuff gets sold,
Yeah. Well, and then I'm sure you
distributed.
know, and I'm sure it happens in Granbury and Toller and everywhere, but one of the things that we do as an organization is do the drug take back thing twice a year to try to get it out of homes because it sits there
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
people either the kids give it to other kids or they get
Oh yeah, I've
their
messed
houses
around in my
even get
mom's cabinet
robbed.
before.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you did that too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sure did. I did everything, and then she started hiding them from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
So maybe think about what else you want to say, but I'm curious if I could ask you a question right now about
hmm
what do we talked on the phone about this part, but you had told me that it was probably about 3 years before your parents really had much of a clue that you
mm,
were even,
yeah.
doing drugs at all. What do what would your advice be to parents with regards to how they could they're not going to be popular, I get that. So
Right.
with their kids, but what could parents do to see things quicker, and to act in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, I did my absolute best to try and hide it from my family. I didn't want, anything. I wanted them to see me the way that they always saw me. Like my mom used to call me her shadow. Like I was
Sure.
always with her.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of four.
Okay.
I Nobody else in my family has an addiction problem. Like this just wasn't supposed to be me, and that
Right.
that was what I always thought. But now I'm very
Sure.
happy that it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I think just don't ignore it. Like you can't accuse them because that's when they'll start to clam up. That's when I started to clam up because I mean she was accusing me. It was true.
Hmm.
But she started to like call me on my on my crap and say things like that, and I clammed up. Just be like the biggest thing that I just wish I could have talked to her, like and just like had her listen, like be like I'm doing this. Like if your kid or if you suspect that they're doing something, they probably are.
Yeah.
You know your child. You know your child, and they're. I'm not gonna say this like all kids do it or something, but a very big amount of kids do, and that's just the truth. Do just like I would say the normal things, but there will be kids that take it a step further, and if they just make it to where you can talk to them, like
Mm.
don't be like I don't want to say don't be hard on them, but like don't be aggressive with them and like just like lock it down. Like if I find out this is done, if I find out this is done, if I find out, let me know and we can talk about it because
Right.
they might just need somebody to talk to.
Right. No, that's really good. And I think that also made a good point about, you know, I think what I'm hearing is even if a, teenager's not doing it, I'm sure that there's a lot of pressure to, or at least the
Absolutely. That's
access
how it
to it
started.
is, the access
hmm
is there, right? And
Yeah, the access for sure.
so obviously the lucky ones are those I would say that somehow or another, didn't get into that. But I think you also make a good point, and it's, yeah, as a parent, I'll say it's not easy, but I think it's good advice to say, hopefully, to try to be
hmm
approachable, someone that
Yeah,
can be told about
approachable.
it, because I don't know. Well, I don't know any parents. I don't know any parents that, to your point, want to hear. In other words, in the sense of somewhat devastating, right? To
It
find
is.
out
It
that
is.
your child is into that.
Yeah.
So
But at the end of the day, it might be devastating to hear that they are into it, but wouldn't you rather be able to be that person for them to feel comfortable talking to it about instead of ignoring it? Because then what does ignoring it do? It doesn't
sure.
get rid
Well,
of the
you're going to
problem.
get even. I would assume you're going to get even more creative or even better at hiding it,
And
right?
that's what
Because
I
if you,
did. I
yeah,
got to be a really good manipulator. I got to be a really good liar. I got to be really good at hiding things. Um, it was a learned behavior. I
right,
learned it from my friends, and I brought it home, and I ended up mastering it.
right,
So my mom and my family, they kind of knew, but not really.
sure,
They had their like they probably thought I was just out. And me and my mom talked about it not too long ago. She said, I thought you were just out drinking and partying and like staying out all night with your friends. drinking, which
Right.
I'm not saying is okay, but like, like there's kind of
Sure.
that gray area. She's like, I
Right.
didn't think you were,
Right. Well, if you don't mind, it's a little bit off subject, but since
hmm
you brought it up, another thing that our, that the Hood County Substance Abuse Council is kind of focused on is this concept of social hosting. Have you heard that term before? I'll briefly explain it, but that's where, in essence, parents are willing to, in essence, allow, a group of kids, in essence, to host a party, right? And so,
Oh, they
uh,
allowed the kids to
yeah,
get.
I'm just curious, you know, well, yeah, that's one of the things that, we're hearing a lot of, right? And I would argue that I'm not saying you're saying to do that, right? I'm just saying that's another hot topic for us because,
hmm
kids end up doing that and obviously drive home and, potentially could have car accidents and all that. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I just,
I've,
I think,
I mean, I'm sure I've been to one without meaning to,
yeah,
because I mean, there's always been, the mom in the back room,
right.
just like
The
letting us,
cool mom,
the cool mom. We're like, we're gonna go
whatever.
to your
Yeah,
house, and
sure.
but she would always be like, keys, nobody
Yeah,
leaves.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that that is a good thing. I'm not saying that's okay, but in retrospect, kids are gonna do what they want to do, and I'm not endorsing it, but at least they're not driving.
right. I get it. I mean,
And
I think what I'm hearing you say too is we need to at least recognize that
it's a
there's
thing,
a lot of pressure, a lot of things coming at the kids, and
right?
you should at least assume that they're being given the opportunity to do it. So
Yeah.
we need to be able to
Yeah.
have a line of communication that they're willing to
For
have.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. And just make it to where they're not scared to talk to you. You know,
sure,
I was scared to tell my mom anything because I didn't want to get grounded.
right,
I didn't want the
sure,
backlash. I didn't want my freedom taken away from me. So I thought hiding the bad stuff would be better. Which, looking back now, maybe she just wanted to hear it from me instead of
right,
hearing it from the other parents. Like, hey, your daughter's
right.
she's a little
So
out there.
I'm just going to recap a little bit and
Mhm.
then get you to where you can talk about what else you want to talk about your story. But
Mhm.
if I have kind of collected all this right, you had an initial rehab that you went to,
Right.
right? And that really didn't, you weren't ready.
Nope.
You ended up getting caught, asleep, basically having just taken some drugs. That ends up in another situation where you're in jail. Now, tell me how. So you were there in Hood County jail for a while.
Yeah.
They allowed you to go to the rehab, right? And
Mhm.
did you have to spend any more time, jail time?
Yeah. So that's what I'm
Okay.
fixing to get
Okay.
to.
So we're
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'll just finish it up real quick. That's, just 1 year, but it was
Sure.
pretty, in one place. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a quick
Okay.
story. But my court date, I got out of Serenity December 15th of 2018. Yeah. And so I was starting to do Legacy, the sober living house, and then I got a call saying, "Hey, your court date is January 2nd for this charge."
Mm-hmm.
Like, cool, I'm sober. We're getting 4 years probation. I can do it. Blah blah
Sure.
blah. I was like 62 or 63 days sober.
Yeah.
The day before my court date, and they wanted me to turn myself in before my court date because apparently all the paperwork from whenever I was taking bond UAs didn't get processed, so they thought I was a no call, no show. And I'd
Mm.
been taking my UAs and
Yeah.
sending it like Hood County, like faxing and
Right.
everything.
Right.
Like you just have to turn yourself in to do your assessment and stuff with the person for Hood County just to kind of see if you need to do Safe P or not,
Right.
which is the substance abuse felony punishment program. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to jail. Like,
Right.
I'm not doing that. And they're like, you just have to go in and do a walkthrough, do your assessment there, and just fix your warrant because it's not accurate.
Right.
It was literally just because of the paperwork. I didn't mess up anymore.
Yeah.
Which that still never got resolved, but it's whatever. And so I turned myself in January 2nd. I turned myself in January 2nd. Excuse me, my court date was January 8th. So I
Right.
sat there. I went into the back into county after 2 days in the holding cell. They finally figured out my bond and like figured out a way to get me out. And I was like, just leave me in here until
Yeah.
my court date on the 8th. It's in 2 days.
Right.
There's no point in paying for me to get out again.
Right.
Going back on bond. Like, just leave me in here. Whatever. I'm sober. I can do it.
Right.
And so I sat there. And my court date was January 8th. It was just super embarrassing because I had to walk in my stripes, like
Yeah.
chained from
Into
my
the
hands.
courtroom?
Yeah, into
Yeah.
the courtroom, chained from my hands attached to my feet.
Right.
Like
Wow.
which I get it, whatever. I did do something wrong, but like I was doing good then, you
Yeah.
know? And just kind of sucked to like get brought back down a level
Sure.
after I felt like I was on top
Right.
of the world doing good and sober living in Abilene. And like I was supposed to go to work on the 10th in
Right.
Abilene.
Yeah.
I had got a job set up. But he was like, "You're gonna get 4 years probation." I'm like, "Okay, cool, great. You know, like, can I get out of here now? Y'all gonna like take these off?"
Yeah.
And they said, and at the very bottom, Miss Gilbreth will also attend a substance abuse felony punishment program facility and remain in custody until she pulls chain. Like,
Wow.
what are you talking about? You know? I found out the day before from my lawyer that this is what the deal that he made with the attorney.
He had not told you about it? Wow.
No, I thought I was going to get off free because I went to rehab.
Yeah.
Kind of made the decision that that's what was best for me, which looking back now, if I wouldn't have gotten locked up as long as I did, I don't think I could credit anything to how long I've been sober now.
Right.
Because I was 2 months sober. It was a really
Sure.
weird time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to know.
In the grand scheme of things, for a lot of people, that's not very long, is it? In other words, I'm sure a lot of relapses happen, you know.
I would not change a thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for myself for what happened. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, for sure. But I was so mad at the time.
I'm sure.
I prayed to God for patience, and I got safety.
Yeah.
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 And so I sat in there from the 8th to the 28th in county because they signed my papers. I was on deferred adjudication probation for 4 years, but I would also attend the substance abuse felony punishment program, which is a 9-month facility because I broke my finger the day before I went into county.
Oh, no.
Would have been a 6-month program, but I broke my finger saving dogs off the highway. So I had to go to a special needs unit, and that's another 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't take medication or anything like that. Special needs is just like if you're on depression medication, if you need some extra counseling, or if you need extra medical assistance, they have an infirmary for like wrapping and doing stuff like that.
Right.
My finger was already healed before I even got there in county, but I was mad.
Wow.
And so I pulled chain to TDC January 28th of 2019 because this was going into the next year.
Right.
And I got there, was awake all day, went through the whole Woodman unit and had to do the intake paperwork, you know, the very dehumanizing, moralizing stuff. Finally got over to Hackberry, where I did my 9.5 months. And that place changed my life. I sat down, I basically sat in timeout. I worked while I was in there. It was just like normal prison. You had your job, you had what you had to do, you had your bunk, you had everything.
Did you share did you have to share your living quarters with someone else?
I shared it with 48 other women.
Oh, wow.
We had dorms. When you go to actual TDC, there's no like cells and stuff unless like you're in SEG or something like high, you know, as far as like your ranking goes, if like you're I can't even remember what it's called anymore, but like a dangerous one.
Sure, right.
But I was, you know, low risk.
Right.
Obviously. And so the way that they're set up is like you go into this room and it's just like cubicles. 1 through 48. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there was 3 dorms on Hackberry. And so there was an A side and a B side to each one.
Right.
2 different doors and a picket in the middle so the guard could watch both sides.
Right.
So I was in building 1, side B, bunk 14.
Wow.
So I was 1B14. Well, I was there. That's my name. I wasn't Gilbreth. I was Gilbreth or 1B14.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever knew my name. And when people called me Kate when I got out, I was like, what?
Right.
But
had to remember what your first name was.
I know. I went by 1B14 for so long. But I did that and I worked and we did everything exactly how you would do normal prison, just kind of get your time over with. But from 12 to 4 every day, we had groups where you sat in the day room and you listened to the counselor talk.
Okay. For 4 hours.
4 hours every day, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
But I was working first shift commissary clerk. And so I was getting up. Oh, there goes my ring. I was getting up. My alarm went off at not my alarm. The guard was my alarm.
Right.
Yo, breath, get up.
Right.
I worked first shift, which is the breakfast shift. I got up at 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Breakfast is served before 5, and I got off work at 7.
Wow. Did
And
you like go to sleep right at 7?
you can't. You got to do groups at
Oh
12.
yeah,
You can't sleep during the
oh,
day.
okay. No, I mean, oh, you mean 7 in the morning. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got off
So
at
you,
7 in the
yeah,
morning, and so I would go back to the dorm. And then since I was, working that first shift, laundry is in the morning for the normal group, but I'm working in the kitchen, so
right,
I'd get off work and have to like run over to laundry for like the special morning time workers, which is what I was.
right,
Get back, have my time for the shower, because if I didn't shower in the morning afterwards, you don't get a shower at night.
right,
Everyone else showers at night.
right,
So I'd take a shower, and then I'd go back to my bunk and try and sneak some coffee, and then
right.
we go to lunch at 11, and then group is at 12, and I was just tired. Can't go to
Right.
bed until after groups are over.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Can't go to bed until, we have dinner at 5:30. You get back, and we have groups just between us, like pure ran,
Right,
from 6:30 to 7, and then after 7, you can crash, and I crashed.
right.
7
Sure.
to 2, I was dead,
Yeah. Of course.
But I did my time, and from January 28th to, I was supposed to get out, October 15th. Like, you pull a couple days early normally,
Right.
right? And they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're leaving November 5th." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Why?" So I was having to wait on a bed in the halfway house,
Okay.
which is a mandatory part of whenever you get released.
So was it this past November that
It's
you
the one that
got
just
out?
passed.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
I haven't been out very long.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been out for a while, but I went and did that, and I got out November 5th, pulled to the VOA halfway house in Fort Worth, which is a mandatory part of the thing you got to do when you get out, 2 months and a halfway house, 60 days.
Okay.
And I did my time. I worked while I was in there. I have my own car with my name and my title, my insurance.
Right.
So they will allow you to have your car up there, and you can leave your phone in your car. So I
Okay.
worked downtown off 7th Street.
Right.
And I just did my time, did my groups, and I got out.
Sure.
And another really big life decision that I made while I was in there is I was gonna stay in Fort Worth. I was just gonna come home when I got out.
Yeah.
I was just gonna go back to my normal, stagnant water of what I knew.
Right.
And my mom was like, "So what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? You want to sign up for sober living? Do you want to do that again? You've been, doing this since 2018. Like, do you want to stop? Do you want to try and get your own place?" And I'm
Right.
like, "I want to do sober living, but I don't want to do it here
Yeah.
because I will go back out again. I've been sober for well over a year at this point.
Yeah.
A year and a couple months.
Too many familiar things.
Too many familiar
Yeah.
things, and I know way too much here, and I know
Right.
too many people, and I'm I like coming home for times like this.
Sure.
I'm with my best friend, one of the good ones that dropped me off.
Yeah.
And I'm just around my family and stuff, and then I go back to Austin.
Right. Yeah.
But I had never even so much. I drove through Austin one time as a kid, and my mom woke me up and said, "Look, there's the Capitol," and then I went back to sleep. I'd never been to Austin.
Right.
I didn't know one person that lived there, not one.
Right.
And I said, "I want to go to Austin." And she's like, "Okay, why?" Because I don't know anybody. I know
Right.
people in Dallas. I know people in Fort Worth. I know people in Abilene.
Mm-hmm.
I know people just about everywhere. Houston. I don't know anybody in Austin. And I
Right.
like the idea of the city.
Sure.
Just like the urbanization of it and
Yeah.
stuff. Just like the direction that they're going. And she was like, "Okay, that's great, I guess." And so one of the girls I actually went to rehab with the first time, she lives in San Antonio, but she did live in Austin at some point and went to a sober living there. And she's like,
Right.
"Hey, see, you're doing good." And like, we would talk every now and then. And I'm like, "I'm wanting to move to Austin." She said, "Here's this sober living that I lived in. It's amazing. It's a grad house."
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit more lax on like the rules and stuff, but it is, they do the drug test,
Sure.
all those things, but it's it's a grad house. It's like your final step before getting your
Oh,
own place,
Right. Okay.
It is
Yeah.
sober living, but they don't do like the curfews, or we don't have
Right.
like a democratic community in there where we like can vote people off
Right.
the island, But
Is there
so
a set period of time that you're planning on staying there?
I just signed a year lease.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
I
So
did.
you'll be there at least a year in this sober living kind of environment.
Our
Okay.
lease actually started today.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
So we just went in all together. I'll get to that part, but I've lived there since January, and we decided to go ahead and because the homeowner was ready to rent it out as a normal house, and she's like, "I like y'all being in there,
Right.
but I'm getting old, I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm done with the sober living.
Right.
If y'all are all down to live together and hold each other accountable, I'd love to have y'all being the ones rent it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in early July, and she said July 31st we will end the sober living, and we'll put the deposit down for like, the gas, the electric, and stuff. So
Right.
I just paid for my first month and all of the how we're all splitting everything.
Right.
The deposits for everything, and so that started today.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on that. So
But we just signed a year, so I will definitely be there. I love the people that I live with.
And you're starting a new job.
And
right?
I started my new job. I did.
Will you still be working 2 jobs, you think? Or will that other job be full-time?
That job is going to be, I'll be a patient coordinator at a doctor's office in Austin. Super amazing job. A lot of opportunities to grow with that company as well.
That's great.
And I'll be working there 8 to 5, 8 to 5:30. Okay. And then I'm a manager at a Palm Beach Tan in Austin, which I am allowed to say. I already asked them.
So go get a tan in.
Yeah, go get a tan in Austin.
If you're in Austin, go get a tan there.
Over in the West, I manage the Westlake location. I'm the AM over there. So, but I think I'm gonna keep on doing, just because I do have a manager position.
Sure.
I just don't have it in
keep
me.
you busy,
right?
I
love it over there. I really like my job. It's just financially, Austin's expensive.
Yeah.
I would love to get my foot into that career area. I would like to go back to college one day. But it's a good place to get into, and it's not something that I could just say no to. Like, you don't get an opportunity like that at that type of doctor's office.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great.
So I'll be working the 2 jobs, but I've been down in Austin ever since. I'd made another, just one of those quick decisions, make the right decision for yourself.
Right.
So that one day I decided Austin, and then the next day I decided, okay, I got a hold of the lady that owns the house. I just drove down there, met her, and I just signed the papers.
Right.
And then January 13th, I moved to Austin. And October of this year, of 2020, October 25th, I'll have 2 years sober.
That's amazing. That's great news. That's great.
Just been working since then, doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Since then, I'm almost finished with my aftercare. I should already be done, but the counselors are all out due to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So
aftercare is a part of your sober living thing, you mean?
No, it's a part of the release of your substance abuse felony.
Oh, okay.
The SAFE-P. It's a 6 months of classes afterwards, like an outpatient.
Okay.
And we've switched them to Zoom because of COVID.
Sure.
So I just have once a week, Tuesdays, 12 to 2, and I should already be done. But my counselor to do my discharge paperwork isn't in, so I just keep doing it every Tuesday. But that's fine. It's not super
one
big
interesting
deal.
thing about Austin for us too is the naloxone that we actually got came out of a harm reduction
Clinic.
group down there in Austin.
Okay.
And I'm trying, the part that did the sent us the naloxone's called Tony. I'm trying to remember what that stands for. But anyway, so I know there's some progressive things happening down there as well, I think, with
Austin
regards
has
to
a huge recovery community.
Yeah.
Huge. It's like the biggest recovery community in Texas. They have a big sobriety rally that was supposed to be in August. I don't know if that's or in September. I don't know if that's a thing right now. But there's just so much to do down there. Like, they'll have big groups of people that are sober. Like, sobriety is not boring.
Yeah.
We go zip lining, rock climbing, we go cliff jumping.
Sure.
Like, there's big groups of us that are sober. We'll go, they will have concerts for people in recovery, and we will all just jam out and do stuff like that. It's fun. The people are amazing. We go do so many things. I thought sobriety was going to be white knuckling, boring. I have to sit at home.
Right.
Man, I can do so much more that I'm sober. Y'all can't hang out with me. I'll be on the boat tearing it up on the wakeboard.
Right. Well, and I'm just, that made me think of something I'm sure that might be helpful for those that are watching this. I mean, can you maybe compare, and I know there's no comparison, but compare and contrast what I got to believe is now a life in essence of freedom versus when you were, when drugs basically, ran your life. So, I mean, maybe you can tell people a little bit about,
the difference.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're just so happy that you're where you're at now.
I really am. There's nothing in my life that I'm always working on myself, but there's no aspect in my life right now that I am uncomfortable with. With uncomfortability comes growth, but I am steadily growing in all directions. I have a very good relationship with my family. I've like met somebody new that like we're, like, and they are a very healthy person.
Hmm.
Like I have good friends. I have a good job. I am financially stable. Like due to like even with COVID.
Sure.
Um, if I want something, I can get it. Like if I like I'm good spiritually. Like I'm very sound with myself and I'm centered with myself. I know whenever like what my signs are, when to tell myself no, when to tell myself yes, and like that it's okay to treat myself and like
Right.
do things for myself. But there's nothing in my life that I'm just like, oh, if I could just fix this, my
Right.
life would be good. Like I've accepted my flaws and like of course there's things that like I have to live with, in my past, but like if you hold on to that, you are never going to be happy.
Mm.
The past is
Yeah.
back there for a reason. If you can either, you know, you can grow from it or you can dwell on it. Either way, you're still going to be on it. So,
Sure.
I mean,
Well, we're all a work in progress, right?
right?
Forever. I
I
mean, so
know.
that's just need to be able to. I think what I'm hearing you say is just need to be comfortable with
Just be
imperfection
just be
because,
comfortable. Just love yourself in your own skin
yeah,
because if you don't, nobody else will. If you're not happy with yourself, and it's taken me a long time to get here. I'm still working on it. But
sure,
if you're not happy with yourself, it shows. And people, I mean, it's just like the energy that you radiate.
right, yeah,
Just
that's
just be just try to be the that's what I always like that's my piece of advice that I always give people like and I said it earlier like make little decisions throughout the day so that yourself tomorrow will be happy with what you made the decisions that you made today.
right,
Like are you going to be mad at yourself tomorrow for what you did
right,
today? Yes, okay, then don't do it. Like
right,
should I
right,
just go home when I get off work and not get gas because I'm just really tired and I don't want to have to get gas right now. I'm tired. Or should you get gas right now so in the morning whenever you have to go to work you don't have to stop and get gas, you
right,
know? Just go
yeah,
get gas right now. You'll be fine. You
right,
don't have anything to do when you get home. Just go to
right,
bed.
yeah,
And I mean, I just do little stuff like that. Should I actually take time and, sweep out the rest of the rooms at work so that the person in the morning doesn't get mad at me?
right,
Probably. Okay, just do it.
yeah,
Clean
yeah,
the filters, clean all the
right,
spray tan off, it's just little decisions and I'm so
right,
much happier with myself. Don't buy that stupid expensive piece of makeup. You don't need it.
right.
You'll be happier tomorrow that you did it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I just want to bring up again because I think it's so important is that again, like what you're doing is if someone's watching this and they're in recovery, I think to try to not obviously do it alone, right? You need to
Yeah,
be around
there's
people that are going through what you're going through.
mhm.
Having been through some of the things that you've been through, because
Yeah.
I can't even imagine trying to do that
There's
on your
no
own
there's
because
no
there's so
way.
much that you've gone through.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing that I'm so thankful that I am the way that I am living in the place that I am. I would not, I mean, even coming there since January until now, like, I don't think I would still be where I am without getting to come home and be like, so this is what happened today, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And they point me out when I'm wrong, like, okay, well, so what part did you play in that? Well, were you mean?
Right.
But did you tell her that? Yeah, I
Right.
did. Well, maybe that's why she told you that.
Right. Yeah.
Just like a couple of, it's just, you can't do it by yourself. And I tried to hide it. I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want my close friends to know. I just was like, I can do this by myself. I got this. Like, it's not out of control. Like, tell them what? Tell them that I'm doing, drugs. Why? So they
Right.
can worry. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You will be for a little bit. You will be fine for a
Yeah.
little bit,
Right.
and then you won't be, and then it'll be too late. Just
Yeah.
stop trying to carry it all on your shoulders because there's other people that can take a little bit of that weight off, and then you will be able to breathe.
Right.
Just ask for help whenever you need it, even if you aren't sure that you want it. Promise you, after you sit here and vent, like even like telling my story right now, I feel a little bit better. And
Sure.
I've told this story a million
Yeah.
times, but
That's great.
just tell somebody how you're feeling. Like that's the best therapy is just talking about it. That's what everyone says. Well, do you want to talk about it?
Right. Right.
Yes, talk about it. Even if you think you're wrong, even if you think you're right, just tell somebody.
Sure.
Because even then, you're putting it out into the world. You're putting it out into the universe. You're giving it to God. I mean, whatever your preference is, just talk about it and stop trying to carry it all by yourself.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Kate, and maybe but I'm gonna give you like the last word. I'm guessing we're getting pretty close to There's a lot more I'm sure that we could talk about, and maybe we'll
Right?
have other opportunities to do
Yeah,
that. One of the things that
whenever you want to.
one of the other things I was thinking would be amazing, even though you live in Austin, maybe we could do like a roundtable discussion where we actually go live on Facebook, I think, or something
I
like
would be
that.
happy with
That would
that.
be really cool. But
Of course.
so
I
yeah,
will be
what
back.
maybe just give us some final words, and then we'll wrap it up. But whatever else you would like to
Hmm.
say.
Well, I think just if you're watching this is something you're struggling with, if you're watching this and this is something your kid is struggling with or you're suspecting, just know that you don't have to do it by yourself. This is something that a lot of people struggle with, even if you think that they're not. I had no idea up until here recently that so many of my friends and even some of my family were doing it at the same time that I was. So just talk about it. You're not by yourself. You never will be. There's been people before you, and there will be people after you. And if you can help somebody, then it's all going to be worth it because that's the bigger picture of it. So.
That's great. Well, Kate, thanks so much for
Mm-hmm.
spending. I don't know how long it's been. Almost. It's been. Is that 2 hours? Yeah, it's been 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and she's come all the way from Austin to spend time with her family. So we're gonna call it a wrap here.
Oh, they're taking a nap. They're fine.
Okay. But Kate, thank you so much
Of
for your
course.
time,
Of course.
and let's do it again sometime.